Good evening, all. Happy Thursday. I really never know what day it is. Good to see everybody. I am joined again by Sam, the history man. Sam, good to see you.
Is it too late to veto that name?
No, we can change it. No, it's totally, I just kind of blurted out. But yeah, this is going to be a good chat. We are going to be talking mostly about ranking our favorite weapons through history, kind of old world versus new. I'm going to talk a little bit about this fantastic book that I'm reading on Joaquin Murrieta that I would recommend to absolutely anybody. A little bit about our upcoming episode. That's my biggest episode of all time. Sam, you might have found me a little unresponsive in the past week or two because I've just been hammering away at this script. Usually my scripts are like 3,000 words, and this one's almost 10,000. So long episode. It's going to be a good one on Victorio and guerrilla warfare. That should be out. Honestly, guys, I'm shooting for Monday, but it might be like Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how long this one takes me. But this should be a good episode. We'll cover all that and get out of here at a reasonable hour. Sam is hosting a soiree tomorrow that we have to be up for, and should be fun as well. Looking forward.
Yes, we are in fact real life friends who live in the same city. So I'm having a little get together with some friends for
whether Sam likes it or not. And I've been assigned. I really volunteered for bringing the desserts, so I'm brainstorming on what to do with that. But Sam, you could trust me with desserts. I'm a dessert specialist. I will bring something good.
Yeah, I trust you. I mean, it's better than the dessert that I was going to have, which was going to be nothing. So
yeah, I can guarantee you it's going to be better than that. I can. I'll pick a winner. I can say it'll be kind of. I'll go with what my spirit draws me towards once I walk into the store. Nice. But is that light? Hold on, let me turn that light down a little bit. Yeah, so check this out, guys. We are going to be ranking from S tier to D tier our favorite. I will be doing the new world weapons. Sam will be doing the old world weapons. And then we're going to talk about why we picked what we picked, why we placed what we placed, where we placed it, and get your opinions. And I think our most controversial picks are going to be our D tier.
Yeah, probably makes some people angry. It makes me angry that I'm putting the thing I'm putting in D tier, but it's we'll talk about why that is. But
that's a good caveat that
some things are really cool, but they're just not that useful.
Not everybody can be a winner. And also, maybe before we get into it, I'll have you explain the tier listing system, because it's really it's an offshoot of the video game world, and Sam's a astute gamer.
Yeah, just nerd culture in general, right? I mean, that's the I'm sure that many people here have seen tier lists before. They're all over the internet. But yeah.
And it's a really concise and really easy way to rank things. And I think I know we have a very learned audience, so I know everyone will have their own opinion on that. So we'll get to that in just a second. I wanted to touch briefly on the book that I've been reading it'll kind of hint at my upcoming episode topic. This topic will be in a couple weeks, but I think everyone would greatly enjoy this, so I wanted to share it with everyone. It's called Bring Me the Head of Joaquin Murrieta by John Bosnecker. I've got it on Audible. It's absolutely fantastic. It covers the history of California. It covers Joaquin Murrieta, who's often portrayed, especially in Central Californian history, as a bit of a Robin Hood character. And he kind of was, if Robin Hood was just a complete and total sociopath. So it gets into the nitty gritty details. There's a lot of, I don't know if I could say it, but there's a lot of involuntary neck liftings in California history. They're just hanging everybody all the time. Like, they have no chill about it. It's just constant. So there's a lot of violence. It's one of the more violent texts that I've read, and I've read a lot of them. So even if you're not interested in California history, this book will get you interested in it. I don't make any money off of my book recommendations. I just think everyone would really enjoy these. So I highly recommend picking up Bring Me the Head of Joaquin Murrieta. My favorite part in it so far is, are you familiar with the story of Joaquin Murrieta at all, Sam?
I am not.
You spent some time in Santa Cruz in the central California coastal range.
I am in exile from California, so
I
have since come to the promised land here in Texas.
Amen to that, brother. But this whole Central California, really into Southern California, all over California, Joaquin Murrieta, there's differing accounts on his origin story, but he did become a bit of a Robin Hood figure after America took control of California, right? There was a lot of racial division. There was a lot of tension. And he went from gold camp to gold camp, basically, and he turned into a criminal either through necessity or, he was, a lot of people say, forced into a life of crime, right? Regardless of if he was or wasn't, they went on a tear. Him and his boys go to all these gold mining towns. They are just taking people out. They are stealing gold. They are just on a full-on, like, 1930s gangster tear. And the famous legend of Joaquin Murrieta is when they finally tracked him down, there was no way to identify him other than to bring in his head. So they actually established, you've heard of the Texas Rangers, right? You're familiar with the channel, so you've heard of the Texas Rangers. California actually had its own Ranger contingent, and they chased Joaquin Murrieta down, and they have to bring his head back. It's a very medieval story that California is full of feudal landlords and very old West. Very old European, because the descendants there are far more Spanish than they are Mexican. They're far removed from the Mexican government. So there's lots of wealthy families that control California, kind of like today, but they are big, feudal landlords. There's a rancho and a manager, and he has all these peasants essentially that work for him. And this is kind of the dissolution of that and the chaos of the Old West. And but anyway, so Joaquin Murrieta, they have no proof, no way to prove that he's been killed. They have to bring his head in. And if you're familiar with Central California at all, they basically have to go, you know where the Central Valley is, the San Joaquin Valley. It's a great big valley on the other side of the coastal range. So they have to basically go from the west side of that to the east side of that and bring the trophy back to the headquarters to get paid, right? And as they're doing this and making their way through these little frontier towns, they're like stopping and showing local settlers, like, hey, look what we got. It's like stuffed in a bag with a bunch of willow leaves that was supposed to kill the smell. It doesn't kill the smell at all. They're even like bringing little kids over, like, hey, little kid, like, come over here, check this out. And they're like, this is the coolest thing you're going to see today. And they have this like ad hoc.
Well, probably was the coolest thing they saw.
It probably was, yeah. If I was like, you know what? If I was a little kid in Fresno, California, and you rolled through with that, I would, to this day, I would probably check it out. But it's sold to California in California history as a very man of the people tale. I'm not saying that it's not, right? But I'm kind of saying that it's not, because that guy was just on a trail of terror, killing Mexican citizens and Americans alike. And there was like a big influx of immigrants with the gold rush. So there's Chinese citizens and Australians. He's unaliving everybody. He's just going on a full tear. So probably a good thing that he was stopped, but an incredible book so far. And it's informing an episode that's soon to come. So I wanted to recommend that to everybody. Let's see who's in here already. Elite Super Grunt, what's up, man? Bamadiana, good to see you. Good to see everybody. Feels like it's been a long time, but it's really only been like a week or something like that. To be called a nerd is a compliment. It is here. That is for sure. Nick Citrone, what's up, man? Jake Skywalker, what's up, bro? So I think we're going to we're going to ruffle some feathers tonight, which is always fun. We're going to get into ranking old world and new world weapons. We've tried to, so what we're going to do is we're going to err on the side of, what can we call these, like manual weapons?
We wanted to like, I picked things that were all kind of limited use of metal to kind of have apt comparisons, so we could have some kind of comparisons. Obviously the time periods are going to be all over the place here, but the goal of like my picks was to kind of match the level of technology that So obviously I have metal weapons on here, but there's either more primitive metal weapons or kind of less metal in them. So to give a good comparison. And honestly, like I could have easily put 30 weapons on this list of things, because I love weaponry and it's just a fascinating topic, and I struggled to narrow it down. But these are some of the ones that I picked here. We'll talk about what they are when we go through it.
A couple things to preface this with. I threw this together. This is my first tier ranking, so this is on Canva, rather ad hoc, but I think more than enough to get the job done. So hold your comments on that. We'll get a better tier ranking system. Also, what was the other thing that I was going to say? We avoided firearms in general because firearms are generally frowned upon by our benevolent YouTube overlords. So this is going to make it a little bit easier to talk weapons. Then we're going to go to a debate in the chat. Let us know what you think about it. Also, I've got some fun new stuff to play with that we'll get into with the chat. If I can find it. Where did it go here? Media assets. So check this out, everybody. So without further ado, we will be getting into our first tier ranking system tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
You discovered new toys to play with in the chat.
This is so cool. I've got music. So psyched about it. It's gonna be great.
So do you want to go like one for one? Like you do your first weapon, and then I'll do my first, and then we'll.
That's right, Sam. That's what we'll be getting into tonight on History at the OK Corral's first weapons tier rankings. Brought to you by History at the OK Corral. Cool. Yeah. So what we're gonna do? We'll do 1 and 1, and you can tell me whichever one you'd like to start with, and then I'll kind of bring it up and highlight it here.
Well, let's do the two bows first, because I think that'll be a good comparison.
And this was the best picture I could find for mine.
All right, yeah, and that's fine
on the fly.
So for the two bows we got here, the old world bow I hear is a recurve bow, sometimes called a Hunnic bow or a Turkish bow. They're all kind of the same thing, but the main difference is this is a composite bow, and what a composite bow is it's a bow that's made up of multiple pieces rather than just like a single piece of wood and then strung together. This is like multiple layers were kind of pushed and then glued together to create a bow that, while still relatively small, had a lot of draw weight as what's to it still.
Can you explain maybe a little bit more about what the layers are? Because most people, if you've ever built a bow as a kid, or you would just assume from a bow that you've seen in a movie that it is just basically a branch that someone has stuck a string through either end and then made it into a bow. But that's not the case with these. This is a whole new level of technology.
It's not. And they could be made of a couple different things. The most common were either just wood, but also various types of animal horns were also a material that you would make these out. You could make these out of, depending on your region. And so basically what you would do is you'd cut really kind of thin strips of wood, and you would use a type of glue to kind of glue them together.
What was the glue?
And layer them on top of it. It depends on the region and depends on the time period, and I'm not actually sure off the top of my head, but
it depends where you are, really, though, right? But there's various animal products that are kind of boiled down to make a glue.
Yeah, glue is you find different types of glue throughout the world. It's something that people have known about for a very long time.
And so what is the purpose of doing that, really?
The purpose of doing this is to create a bow with a lot of draw weight that's still relatively small. That's relatively compact. And of course, the advantage of a compact bow is that it's much easier to fire from horseback. larger bows, and you can even see in the picture the brand that has larger bows, like you can still fire them from horseback, but they either require you to kind of change the technique. They're more difficult to fire from horseback, and so a composite bow has a similar level of force that it projects in a smaller frame, and these are like incredibly effective weapons. You see them; they're best known in kind of the nomadic horse cultures of the old world and of Central Asia, but they were used by many civilizations for hundreds of years, thousands of years, really. And it's a so animal horns. It's when you if you kind of slice them down and again like slice. I'm responding to here to
yeah. I'll bring the chat up.
If you slice them down into like thin strips and glue them together, it creates the same. It's going to still be able to boot, like to bend, right? So you would and you cut them into these kind of strips basically, that you would then stick together. It's
effectively like a carbon fiber before a carbon fiber, like you're layering it in there.
Exactly. This is and that's how you do it. So yeah, animal horn, a different type. And if you're gonna ask me what exactly type of animal horn, I do not have the answer to that. But it is
like you said, it depends on region largely. Like in the plains in the American plains, it would be a bison almost universally, or sometimes depending on the region too. Sometimes a white-tailed deer or something, and then. For a Mongol, I don't know. It might be an oxen, right? It might be something completely different.
Yak or something, or sheep, various kinds of goats. Depends on where you were. And it depends on what's available, because wood was also used as well. It just kind of depends, again, on what you have available. In Africa, you would use horns of things like you would have bows made of horns of things like elephant tusks as well, I believe. So.
It's not so much the material. It is the material plays a role, but it's
a role,
mainly
but it's
the layering, right?
The layering and the kind of style, right? And so the picture I've got is kind of one example of what that looks like. You sometimes see them with in kind of a recurve pattern, so where it kind of like goes up and then dips and then back around.
Right.
That's a kind of bow as well. But it's the same kind of technique that's used to create these. And these are distinct from like the English longbow. Mm-hmm. Longbows are going to be the style of bow that's going to be made from just a single piece of wood. You'll
notice too a shorter arrow. It's maybe a half the length of the bow. It's very stocky and very short.
Yeah. Now, and you might be thinking to yourself that these types of bows don't fire as far or as with as much force as like an English war bow, and you would be wrong. They actually are easily comparable, and in many cases, just outright superior.
It's a lesson in physics, right? You're compacting all of that draw weight and power, and that potential force into a much smaller package.
The world record for distance in archery was actually up until very recently, like with extremely modern bows, was from one of these.
I did not know that. Oh, that's
it was done by a Turkish prince at one point, but there were actually like credible witnesses that measured and saw it, and that was that. I do not remember the name of the Turkish prince, and the Turks used these type of bows as well. I mean, the Turks are another. They're not later Turks weren't nomadic, but they were originally were a nomadic horse people, and so they use these types of bows. And but it was a Turkish prince actually held like an Ottoman prince held the world record for distance archery for hundreds of years, like 100 years.
Let's talk real quick about how they shot these, because it's not. You might think that it's like an English longbow where you're drawing all the way back to, let's say, like with arm fully extended, then your other hand coming to your cheekbone, like Braveheart, and then firing these arcing volleys. That's not the case with these composite bows.
Yeah, so one of the key differences is in where you hold the arrow, because especially if you're riding on a horse at full gallop, sometimes you can't. It depends a little bit on like where you're holding there. Like arrows, the back mounted quiver is obviously a thing that exists historically, but it's kind of
Right.
it's probably not actually that typical of many of like the kind of common ways to hold arrows.
It's not that practical. It looks
Yeah,
good in a movie. It looks
yeah.
cool.
A lot of time, yeah. Well, yeah, and for carrying a bunch of arrows like a long distance, it's great.
Totally,
Like
but not
it's
on
great.
a horse. In
Not on a horse.
no.
Because if you're on a horse, if you got a quiver on your back, it's those as the horse gallops, those arrows are going to fall right out. They're going to bounce up and out. I mean, back quivers do exist. Elite Super Grunt. They're just not. They're not just the main standard, the only type of quiver, and they're not also the main kind of way you would hold arrows in combat. So there's different techniques, but a lot of them, you would either hold arrows in the hand that you have the bow in. So like you hold the bow, right? And then you have like some of your fingers kind of extended out here like this, and you would keep a bunch of arrows like in you're like holding it right in front of the bow, and that way you could just kind of take one and then in a single motion,
Right.
Pull and draw. And the way these would be from horseback would be not the arrow is not on the left side of the bow; it's on the right side of the bow.
On the top.
On the top, yeah. It's on the and so it's and a lot of the ways that this is another thing you see in Hollywood a lot with archery that is not very accurate. Is people like drawing a bow and then like holding it to aim like really
Right.
for a long time. It's like nobody does that historically.
That is something that you would see like in a hunting video.
Yeah. You're a bow of the kind of draw with the kind of draw weight that these bows are, like you would start to like you would not be able to physically hold it back.
Let's talk about draw weight real quick, and meaning that like you might on an English longbow you might need, I don't know, 50 pounds, 40 pounds.
No, the larger. I'm gonna actually look that one up because
on a longer bow it's generally going to be less. Where like a really short composite bow, it could be 100 pounds plus, and you're not going to pull it all the way back. You're going to kind of keep these arrows chambered in the hand holding the bow, and it makes it like a revolver basically.
So, the draw weight of an English longbow is between 80 and 100 pounds. Or sorry, 80 and 180 pounds. 80 to 180 pounds. Yeah, big war bows were massive draw weight.
But you could aren't the smaller bows
bow
a higher draw weight in general?
No, they're about the same.
Okay,
they're smaller, but they're about the same draw weight. So the average is probably between 100 and 150 pounds for both a kind of a English war bow and a bow, a composite bow.
But meaning it takes that much force to draw it back. So like think about like rowing up, think about pulling up 100-pound dumbbell. Like it's not easy.
So what you do is you kind of you draw and release the arrow in like a single motion. You can't hold it. Like your aiming is done before you draw.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why bows are such they're a difficult to use master weapon, is because you have to kind of you have to have a lot of experience to
There's
be able
a lot of
to
intuition to it.
Yeah, and a lot of it's like you got to have a feel for it, And it's not like modern kind of Olympic archery, right, where they're sitting there holding the bow for a long period. It's what kind of happens to archery after archery moves from being a sport, a military technique, right, to a sport is, and especially as bows develop to the point where they're no longer the purpose isn't really to inflict a lot of force. Things like accuracy becomes more important. You don't actually need a large draw weight in a bow like that if you're primarily focused on accuracy and distance.
Right.
And so like Olympic archery is very different than historic archery. There's nothing wrong with Olympic archery.
But it is different.
It's an evolution of how that kind of how it's but it's very different than what archery used for military tactics, like in military formations and such, what it was.
And as part of their culture, in these archery cultures, kids were brought up. I mean, 3 or 4 years old, they would have a toy bow in their hands, and they were always practice shooting. There was always shooting contests. This intuition wasn't built by like a training program that they got into at age 15. This was something they did their whole lives. So by the time they got to an age where they're in battle, they could just kind of point and shoot. But yeah, there wasn't this like aim, draw, fired, wasn't
anytime you see in Hollywood of like them holding a drawn bow for long periods of time, that's just dumb. It's not realistic. It's not, and you know what? It looks cool sometimes in Hollywood, so you give Hollywood a little bit of a pass, right?
Yeah.
But it's like same with like flaming arrows, which yes, there were flaming arrows historically, but there's way more flaming arrows in movies than you would have typically seen in a battlefield.
It looks cool. Again, it looks cool. I think it looks cool too. But and again, I just saw your message. Bama Deanna is waiting for her grandson to be born tonight. So best wishes, Bama Deanna. Sorry, I just saw that. So I just wanted to touch on that. That's very important. So we're all hoping the best for you, Bama Deanna.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. That's a great thing. Let's see. If your aim is more natural, you can fire faster. Absolutely.
Yeah. So and there's also kind of so the technique of drawing bows with a composite bow is different than kind of a like an English style longbow. But in both kind of, I mean, in England and in like various other cultures, right? It was very common for kids to grow up, as you're saying, learning how to shoot. It was hunting small game, pretty much no matter where you were, if you were a peasant, like was a great way to get a little extra meat into your diet, right? That was a very common thing.
It's the same thing with rural families today.
And they at various points, like the government of England actually required peasants to train with longbows because it became a main part of their military.
And they're not made out of metal. They're cheap to produce, all things considered. And they're if you need more ammo, you just make more arrows. It's a very economical option.
But you have to really train people on them because it requires a lot of physical strength. And it also requires a lot of skill to use correctly. There's also a lot of especially these high draw weight bows. You get problem if you only ever use one arm to hold the bow and one arm to draw the bow. You actually you can get various kind of skeletal and muscular problems.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll see that in hunter archers today even.
Yep.
You just get imbalances.
You get imbalances in which can lead to longer problems. Yeah.
If you're just doing that one thing over and over thousands of times throughout your life, it makes sense. One thing I wanted to touch on too before we give our rankings for the bow and arrow or the composite bow, you mentioned this practice of putting arrows in between your fingers on the hand holding the bow.
You could also do it in the hand holding the arrows.
Sure, yes, but this notion of rapid fire it made them almost impossible to contest, especially on the American frontier. You just see that again and again until the Patterson Colt revolver, until you had a 5-6 shot revolver, there was no way to beat them. Like you can shoot maybe 2-3 times if you're really good with a musket, with a muzzle loading rifle. So this, it ironically was a more advanced technology than the firearms available until the 1840s in many ways because of the amount of fire it's able to lay down.
Yes, and because Europe and kind of European powers had moved away from metal armor because of firearms, it also meant that now bows are actually even more effective because the kind of counter to bows, right, is shields and metal armor, right? But Europe had kind of stopped using a lot of metal armor by the time they get to the New World, or they had very limited amounts of metal armor.
It doesn't continue very long.
Yeah, and so it allowed for this period of time where when the rifles hadn't rifles and in firearms in general hadn't you didn't get into the Colt revolver, right? It was
that's what changed the game in a lot of ways, because like otherwise there was no way to lay down that amount of fire, so you were just eventually at their mercy.
And yes, you are
ahead.
correct. Modern compound bows, if you've ever fired one, I have, which I have. There's like resistance when you start to draw it, but when you can actually hold it,
right?
For because of the way they're structured and they're built, and
they essentially lock into place.
They lock, and so you can hold it for much longer. And that's again why when archery moved away from being a
martial pursuit to
a sport, right? And then in the sport, the sport of archery is primarily driven by accuracy, and like so that's your distance to an extent as well, but accuracy is kind of the more important factor if you're like a competitive archer. So rather than how many arrows you can fire. Yeah.
Stuck a Boom says, was it more quantities of arrow over aim?
Yeah, because it doesn't. You need to be accurate with a bow, but you don't need to be like, it doesn't really matter. Like there's a fairly big area on a human where if you hit them, it's probably going to be lethal.
And honestly, another point to add to that even is if you're fighting a mounted enemy, unless their horse is armored, you could hit their horse as well.
Yeah. And in which case,
almost the horse is just as bad.
Yeah, because then you're going to go tumbling off your horse and probably also get unalived, right?
It's a very effective, it's something that's so simple that it's hard for it not to be effective. And if you think about it, from its inception until the 1840s, there was not a lot that could beat it. So that's a long time.
And arrows are they in small amounts actually can sometimes cause more damage than a bullet, right?
They can't be extracted in many cases. The arrowhead can bend in the case of metal arrowheads.
So it a lot of times, a bullet, because it has the amount of force it has, even early bullets, it's going to go all the way through you.
Yes,
right, and because of the kind of speed at which a bullet goes, your system doesn't go into shock in the same way that when you get hit by an arrow. So what happens when an arrow hits in you and it beds itself in you, right, is it's very infrequent that it takes more than a single arrow to inflict lethal harm, right? I mean, and it's because what happens oftentimes is your body goes into shock pretty quickly. It kind of regardless of where it hits you, if it hits you kind of in any kind of like important, in your kind of center mass area, it sends your body into shock, and then which can just honestly just shut down your heart in a lot of cases.
Well, on that cheery note, let's
that's why Boromir
our ranking here.
Boromir is a badass for Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, that's the guy with the bow and arrow, right?
No, Boromir's the guy who
gets
hit with. Yeah. Boromir's. Oh, come on, Brandon. Yeah.
Hey, I got
talking about the greatest movies ever made.
I got issues. But so let's rank where you are going to place your. And then maybe if you're just tuning in, we're ranking S tier through D tier. S tier being the best, D tier being the worst. So let's see where Sam puts the composite bow.
The composite bow, we're going to actually put in A tier.
Well, that's interesting. Okay.
And we're going to explain why it's an A tier and not an S tier. I think that needs a little bit of an explanation.
I'm going to give the composite bow, at least in the case of the North American Native Americans, an S tier.
And I think it's probably deserved. And this is the main reason that composite bows I don't put in S tier. There are weapons I will have on this list that I put in S tier. But they suffer from a major defect because of the way composite bows are made, and they're with these kind of layers that are glued together. They are not very usable in certain types of weather. So if it's too wet, if they get wet, they can come apart. The glue that kind of holds them together literally comes apart.
You could almost think of it like elementary school paste. Like it is this like bone matter, like white paste. So it's very, very strong when it's dry. But yes, if it just gets wet, it can kind of melt on you.
It gets wet, and they can literally fall apart. And because that's one of the reasons why you see these types of bows in areas that are very dry. In Central Asia, in Africa, and in the Middle
Great
East,
Plains,
So this is the kind of that's the reason it's an A tier, not an S tier. And this is the reason why, like in England, why you didn't have these, right? Why they used the longbow
too damp.
It's too wet. It rains too much there. These kind of bows would not have been usable. Now, like if you get a modern composite bow, you're probably fine shooting it in the rain, because I'm assuming the glues we probably are using are a lot better.
Elite Super Grunt says, I thought you were my Sam, but now I see you are my Boromir from Pineapple Express. A classic. It's getting to the point where the Gen Z doesn't know Pineapple Express, and it's like, oh, come on.
I don't know Pineapple Express either, so
I guess like Sam, we'll have to watch this Pineapple Express. It's worth watching. We don't want to spoil innocent Sam's mind, but I feel like Pineapple Express is censored enough. Would the cold make the composite bow brittle? Sorry, Elite Super Grunt, I butchered that, bro, but good question.
That I do not know the answer to. I know question, that definitely the moisture kind of causes them to break about, but it's possible that the cold would too. But I would have to research that to give an answer.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I'll look into that too, because we were just talking about we're talking about what they prefer to be called, but we were talking about the Inuit peoples of Alaska, and I know there's people farther up in the Arctic Circle, and I've seen photos of their bows and arrows like hunting polar bear and stuff, which is like kudos for that, first of all. But I couldn't tell you from looking at them whether they were a composite bow or not. Let's see here, and let us know in the chat, where do you rank? Give us your own rankings. Where do you rank the composite bow? That's what we're trying to stir up a little discontent here. So I know we've got several experts. I don't see Josh McAllister here yet, which is kind of a bummer, but he will be here. He will give us his opinion, I have no doubt. Pastor's kids are usually wild. No, certainly not, Sam.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Right.
Elite Super Grunt says A tier. Okay, all right. Elite Super Grunt siding with Sam. I get it.
I think I think it's a sound argument, right?
Yeah, I just think S tier because I'll tell you why. Primarily because of its tenure, its run, because nothing, listen, I understand it's not that nothing could stop it, but especially on the American frontier until the late 1840s, basically nothing could stop it. It, in a lot of ways, held up American expansion, because American expansion basically went to Texas. And if you draw a line from Dallas to Austin to San Antonio, that is where westward expansion stopped for a long time, because Americans, Texans, Mexicans the Spanish did not know how to beat the Comanche, the Cheyenne. They didn't know how to do it because they only had single shot rifles. And then once they got the horse, it just became a nightmare to deal with them. And that really only changed with the Colt Patterson revolver. And I understand it's called the Patterson Colt as well. We'll talk about that sometime too, dude. You would like Samuel Colt. He's a very enigmatic figure, and he's one of the lucky guys in history that took, and I think a lot of Texas Rangers are good with this, took really cool pictures. He got like one picture of himself, but it's pretty cool. So that's all you really need.
Yeah, so Josh McAllister, Josh McAllister. Gosh, why can't I
Ah,
talk?
Josh just came in.
Josh
Josh, I'm glad you're here.
McAllister just got here. Yeah, we're taking kind of 5 old world weapons and 5 new world weapons, and we're putting them on a tier list, and we're talking about that. And there were some other criteria that we've gone over about why we chose what we did, but I kind of wanted to keep things at like a similar level of technology. So yeah.
We're avoiding firearms because YouTube kind of flags that. But Josh, I came up with this idea largely with you in mind. So I'm glad you made it. And let us know in the chat what you think. Where would you rank a composite bow? We're starting composite bow. I've got it S tier. Sam has it A tier for some inexplicable reason. Sam's a crazy man.
Well, yes, I'm putting it at A tier because of the defect that composite bows have. So.
I'm going to kind of keep our themes similar here. So I'm going to try to keep them as similar as I can. I will be going next to the long Spanish lance utilized by the Spanish, the later Californios as well, and in the Mexican-American War as well. And is this a
this is it's a dart actually.
Okay.
It's a throwing dart. It's called a plumbata, and it is the plumbata are kind of what replaced the Roman pilum,
right? That's what I thought it was.
Later Roman legion, in the later Roman armies, and then up in the Byzantine armies as well.
And so, where does it originate from?
So it's an army that was used in the Roman Empire, right? And as kind of
it's a weapon that was used in the war.
Is a weapon used in the Roman Empire, right? And so in the later times of the Roman Empire, starting in kind of probably in the like 200s, I don't know exactly when the plumbata shows up, but it's probably like 200 AD, and then later. So the as Rome kind of had different enemies, and as their armies changed, their technology changed as well. So replacing kind of the pilum, and the pilum is a type of throwing spear. The
Can you explain just for a second, like how the Romans utilized the pilum?
Yeah, so they would throw up the pilums would be thrown before the kind of infantry lines engaged. And the way that they were structured is they would stick into shields and bend, and then which would kind of basically either destroy the opponent's shield or severely limit the enemy shield's usefulness, as it's got a big metal thing sticking out of it. But pilums start to go away for a couple of reasons. Is as kind of infantry tactics change, the gladius gets replaced by like the spatha, which is a longer blade because metallurgy also.
Explain what a gladius is, real quick.
A gladius is the Roman short sword. So those kind of get changed after like the spatha, which is it's a longer blade. It's more similar to like an arming sword of medieval Europe.
16 inches or so, maybe a little longer.
Yeah. And instead of the pilum basically kind of gets replaced by 2 different weapons, both by instead of a throwing spear, like an actual spear, right? Spears start to become more common as Rome's enemies change. They need to adapt their tactics, so they go back to kind of using like a normal kind of spear and shield formations.
And their enemies change, meaning they're fighting. They were in the forests of Germania, and now, like, or how?
Yes, and now, and also they're up against different opponents, right? So as they're up against both kind of invading nomadic horse peoples, also the Persian Empire, which they're big rival for a long time. The Sassanid Persians, well, first the Parthians and then the Sassanid Persians. The same kind of the techniques. The Roman legion was very good at kind of countering the Macedonian phalanx and also or like early Gallic infantry tactics, but it wasn't as useful against those other against their later enemies. So they went back to using longer spears, and instead of throwing spears, they came up with these things called plumbata. They're similar. The tip of them is similar to what a pilum looks like. So that's the same kind of tip that's on a Roman pilum, like which is a
it meant to
longer
be
javelin.
detachable as well?
Yeah, and again, and the point is that it will stick in a shield and kind of eliminate the enemy shield. But it's also, they're much smaller than a pilum, which means you can carry more of them. The shape of the throwing dart means that pretty much no matter how you throw them, they are going to wind up like tip down. So they're become
heavier at that iron tip.
Yes. Yeah. And so like the way that they work, so you could throw them both underhanded and overhanded. And they're going to wind up like, coming in tip down.
About how long is this?
It's about like I think about this long.
Oh, so it's a legit long dart.
It's a dart. It's a dart.
Okay.
It is a throwing dart. I would want to look up to see exactly how long a plumbata is, because that's a good thing.
That's way shorter than I thought, though. Okay, that's like short. That's like today's lawn dart, which is honestly that's pretty
about
about
12 to 20 inches, right? Is about
okay. That's that's even shorter than you thought.
Yeah, and these were kind of the replacement for the pilum, and they fulfilled a similar purpose. But they had both greater range and greater, and you could carry more of them. So they were kind of an evolution of the pilum. They still fulfilled that role of being able to dislodge enemy shields, right? So like to stick in an enemy shield and whatnot. But it also.
And how many of these would you throw at a time? Like a volley of these, or is it just like
you'd have a bunch of guys throwing them at a time.
Yeah,
right? Like a whole unit would have them, and you throw them before engaging. It also, because they're smaller, let you you could use them against enemy cavalry more easily.
Again, you just have to hit the horse. Like, you don't have to be super precise with it.
And it was. And against other kind of enemy skirmisher, like any kind of skirmisher-based troop, these were going to be more effective than the pilum because they could be thrown a lot further. So this is kind of what becomes what the pilum kind of gets replaced by these.
So, where are you ranking? It's the flimbata, right?
Plumbata.
Plumbata, okay.
Plumbata, right?
Honestly, it sounds like a sandwich you could get in Austin somewhere.
Right. And
hold on. I just made a joke, and it was a terrible joke. And in honor of that, I'm going to add in. Where's my little laugh track? Ha 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 ha. Thank you. I just found the sound effects today, guys, and I can't help myself. So, Sam, where are we ranking it?
We are going to put the plumbata in B tier.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Yeah.
Okay. So next, I'm going to be touching on I know long spears have been around for a long time. I think a lot of people think that the tribes that are very famous for using long spears, like the Comanche, invented them on their own. Really, they are an offshoot, an adaptation of the long lances that the Spanish brought over. I think this is a good representation of one, and they were used all the way up to the Mexican-American War, specifically by the Californios, who were very land wealthy in many senses, but a lot of times cash poor. So just making a big long lance with an iron tip was a lot of times the most affordable option for them. Expert horsemen as well. So as were the Comanche, the Cheyenne, on and on. So that made them very adept at getting within range, and just having this 12, 14, 16 foot long lance was in fact a terribly confusing opponent and a terribly confusing weapon to combat for American forces in many instances. Great for buffalo hunting. The Spanish actually had their own contingent of buffalo hunters that would supply their camps called cibolleros. So the buffalo were known as cibolo. Yes, I know I'm butchering the pronunciation, but roll with me a little bit. And it just presented a way to stay out of range of the buffalo, but they would get right behind it and jam that sucker right up behind their rib cage. So it's like, oh, that's pretty awesome, right? But it again, like the bow, its effectiveness rolled well into the 1840s. We've covered a couple of battles like the Battle of San Pascual, the Battle of Rio San Gabriel, almost anything that involves the Californios in the Mexican-American War utilizes these lancers, and they were very effective in all of these instances. Now, was it going to work very long? No, but in many cases, the American forces didn't know what to do with these crazy guys just riding up with lances. And once they shot their initial volley from their single shot weapons, they were kind of at the mercy of these charging lancers. We've seen military technology err this way a lot of times with just going into like super long lances. We saw this, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the Macedonians, with the Spartans, with Crusader forces, and I'm sure pike and shot forces. I think we've seen it utilized a lot of times. And once it made its way here to North America, I think it became one of the most seminal symbols, the most recognizable symbols of native warfare, North American warfare. And I think it became underrated, but it doesn't make it S tier. So the lance, I'm gonna put in A tier. I'm gonna take. I say it's no, guys. I'm gonna go B tier. I'm switching it on the fly. I'm gonna go B tier. I think it's useful. It's underrated, but underrated doesn't make a winner. So
I'd probably put C tier.
I get it, but I'm making the point that it's underrated. And I think if you were looking at it through a North American lens, like you looked how long into, especially the Mexican-American War, it was effective, I think it deserves a little more consideration. Let's see what we've got in the chat here. Who agrees with us? Who doesn't? I think I saw something from Josh a second ago about. We've got a composite bow comment here real quick. Josh McAllister says the composite bow is A++ at its best, but a composite bow was used by the Mongols. There were a few bowyers in the Northwest, the Nez Perce in particular, who made composite bows with bighorn antlers and horns, which is what we were touching on. Yeah, kind of whatever animal you had around was the composite bow material to make your bow. Let's see, A tier for the lance. So I'm getting a lot of agreement with Sam, which I got to be honest with you guys. I don't.
Oh, I said C tier.
You said for the. I thought he was talking about the. Thought he was talking about the bow for a second. A tier for the lance.
I think you can make an argument for A. Sam? Well, so
I moved it down for a reason. I feel like B tier is right.
I think I would have put it in C tier because I think that the where lances in cavalry really shine is when you have a lot of cavalry and you're charging at large formations. That's kind of where shock cavalry is at its very best. It's why it's the dominant fighting force for thousands of years. The most important force you possess in your army is almost always going to be your shock cavalry. And that was the case for thousands of years.
Absolutely, yes.
But it's not for smaller engagements in guerrilla warfare. I think that I think the usefulness dropped off a bit.
What do you think about? Yes, but I think it saw its most effectiveness in the Mexican-American War when it faced an entrenched enemy, when it was going against American forces who were stuck in a particular position in a particular canyon or something. It seemed pretty effective at charging in after an initial volley, inflicting damage without getting too close, and then riding away.
Yeah, that's what shot
Yeah.
cavalry
All right.
does, right? You don't stay engaged. You go in, you hit with your lance. And the reason I put it in C, I would put it in C just for this time period. Obviously, for the totality of history,
Yeah.
I would have put it in A tier.
A
But
tier.
it's for just this time period. I think that the problem with kind of shot cavalry tactics, once you get the development of firearms, is shot cavalry still used. It's used for in both the Civil War and then in like Napoleonic warfare. Even
So
when
you're
there
kind
when
of
there
into
are
World War One.
yes, even into World War One and the very beginning
but,
of World War One, even World War Two, technically.
Yeah, not well, but it was technically used.
But what it struggles to deal with, though, is both artillery fire and massed firearm volleys,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So if you can get them to like when you're using single shot rifles, right? If you can get them to fire their volley, right, either before you're in range with your cavalry's in range, or you can get them to do it like at some point and then hit them with your cavalry.
Yes.
This is great. Cavalry is great, but it does kind of change the usefulness. Shot cavalry is still a critical part of the battle, but it's not. It's a lot harder to use for a commander than it was previously. That's my reasoning there. And yes, lances do break in battle, and oftentimes you would just, as you charge in, you would discard it. Like you'd hit somebody with it and let it go, because otherwise you're going to get dragged off your horse. And then you'd switch to whatever your backup weapon was.
Yeah, there's I think a lot of people get this notion that oh, well, this is my lance. I'm a lance, like a video game player. Like, this is my weapon. Like, no, there's a tiered system of, okay, lance first, maybe sword or dagger second. But there's a backup to a backup. There's an A, B, and a C weapon, usually, at least.
Yes, a lot of times you'll be carrying multiple weapons because you are going to lose weapons in battle. Just in the natural course of an engagement.
Well, let's move on next to, let's go Aztec War Club. And is this a flail?
This is a flail.
Okay.
And I picked the flail because I love the flail.
I see a mischievous grin on your face.
I know, but this is the flails are so cool. Chain weapons in general are just so cool, but it is going to be my D tier weapon. And the reason is because what?
A D tier for the flail.
They're so cool, but the problem with chain weapons is it's so easy to damage yourself with these.
There's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on with a chain and a spike ball, or you could hurt somebody else.
Or even a non-spiked ball, like just you could blunt that. The same. Some of them were blunted. Some of them had multiple chains. I love chain weapons. They're so cool looking, but they're so cool in martial arts demonstrations. But one of the reasons you see chain weapons a lot in martial arts, right, is because they're a notoriously difficult weapon to master. So if you can master nunchucks or any kind of or a kasarigama or some other kind of chain based weapon or a 3-section staff. Like it's a if you can master that, you can master any weapon because they're notoriously difficult to use,
and it looks like control relatively expensive, not the cheapest thing.
No, these are actually probably relative. Okay. Flails are probably more of a peasant weapon than a knight weapon, even though you see them like in Hollywood being as like a knight weapon. It's actually probably much more of a peasant weapon. Because they're kind of an adaptation.
I don't like the idea of a bunch of hillbillies with a bunch of spikes on a ball on a chain. Like, I want to keep it a night weapon.
It'd be an easy weapon for peasants to get a hold of because it's kind of an imitation of like a flail thresher, which is like a farming tool, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. I was going to say usually peasant weapons are kind of derived from.
That's what flails are.
Okay,
they're derived. Okay. They're derived farming tools. Right?
I didn't realize that.
And so it probably was not as much of a night weapon as it tends to get portrayed. And you see the knight with the flail like charging in on the horse and.
That's what I think of. Yeah.
That's what people think of. I think it'd have been way more common to be used as a peasant weapon.
How long is this staff that it's attached to?
It depends. You could have them. You could have like shorter one-handed versions, but you would also have this would be like a two-handed version.
And how would you use it? Are you like in front of the line, or you're like whacking over the top of it?
You swing overhead and. You can also kind of like swing it around like on the chain, like swing swing it around and then
give it a little flare,
like a whip,
Absolutely.
So and again, I love these kinds of weapons. They're so cinematic. That's why you see them. That's why you see them.
He says
in fiction a lot.
the first scene, one of the first fight scenes where they run out of the tunnel in Gladiator, the guy gets taken out. Mm-hmm. It's like swinging back and around and
big
around.
Old ball and chain, right? Just these kind of things have been around for a very long time. Yes. So flails were used historically. They are not super common.
Let's let everybody know what the question is real quick. Were flails? This is from Charles M. What's up, Charles? Were flails actually used for real? I always thought they were fugazi.
The answer is they were used for real, but they were much more of a peasant weapon again than a knight weapon, and they were also much more limited. Right? This was not they were not common by any, and the more common ones would have been these larger two-handed versions, that you would then you'd be able to swing with enough kind of force to like have a kind of shock infantry. Flails are real, but they are they're over portrayed in fiction and in video games and in movies. Because here's the thing, right? You could just remove the chain and put the ball on top of it like a mace, and you have a little bit less force, right? You generate a little bit less force, but it's also way less likely to damage yourself with.
True.
or your buddies who are marching with you here. So did they exist? Yes. Were they used a lot? No. And but yeah, you see I believe there is evidence of historic use, but it would be pretty limited.
Jake Skywalker says Knight of the Seven Kingdoms flail scene was so great. I haven't seen that. Have you seen
that? I've heard it was good. Maybe someone in the chat could speak to that. I watched Game of Thrones, and I watched the first season of the House of the Dragons, and I didn't even want to watch the second season of House of the Dragon because it's how this ends, and Game of Thrones is Game of Thrones irritates me
scenes.
because it's first of all there's a lot of
a lot of butts,
a lot of butt, which whatever. I'm a red-blooded male. I can appreciate that, but it's like Game of Thrones paints a very inaccurate portrayal of feudalism and of the Middle Ages. Obviously, it's a fictional setting. But Game of Thrones is written as a critique of Lord of the Rings, which that's and the characters are often direct critiques of Lord of the Rings and of kind of archetypal characters, and it's a very cynical worldview. I like grim dark fantasy, which grimdark is a subgenre of fantasy. But I think there's better versions than Game of Thrones that are more believable and way more realistic. Grimdark fantasy works really well in settings with high magic, with lots of magic, where life is necessarily cheapened because if you've got like medieval level weaponry, but then the one guy who can throw fireballs throw missiles at people, right? Yeah. It becomes kind of like the value system changes because of that. Now dragons do a similar thing, but the issue is that like Game of Thrones has this like George R. R. Martin has a very negative view of religion. He has a very negative view of human nature. And I don't think that he accurately, I don't think he the world building really supports the world that he sets up. I think that he doesn't really make a lot of sense for some of the things that happen in Game of Thrones to happen, because most people don't just allow like these horrible things to happen, right? I mean, if you've got the mountain, right? Like the guy, the mountain who just goes around brutalizing and
Hafthor Bjornsson.
Yeah. And great strong man, but
friend of the program.
Yeah. But really?
No, it's just a thing that Tim Dillon says.
Sure. I'd love to meet him, but
we hope he is someday. Certainly. If you're out there, Hafthor, shout out.
Yeah. And but okay, so if you had somebody who was actually like that in real life, your behavior would not be tolerated to that point. Like no. It's ridiculous. It's like some of the things that kind of happened in that show, like where people are just like okay with the groups going around and committing atrocities, and it's like most people are not willing to go along with that, even in war, and like.
No, history bears that out.
Yeah, and it's like when you actually get people like that, they're either bandits, right? And in which case they're outcast from society and hunted down.
We opened the show. If you're just getting here, I opened the show talking about Joaquin Murrieta, and this that I highly recommend getting the book. Bring Me the Head of Joaquin Murrieta. But what Sam is saying right now plays out there exactly. It's a violent person who is not. Society does not tolerate.
No. And even in societies that value a martial culture, and in some cases like will cover for people who are a little bit like problematic,
but not someone who endangers the whole.
Not to that extent. If it starts to get to the point where if that the king has like this underling who he's protecting, who's like a horrible degenerate. And is going around doing these like atrocities, and the king just doesn't seem to do anything about it.
If he's going to endanger your army or your kingdom, they're not going to tolerate it. Achilles never endangered the kingdom or the army.
Yeah. He boycotted things. He boycotted, but it was not the same. It's not the same.
No.
And
he's a franchise player who was a bit of a pain to deal with, but he's not going to bring down the organization.
It's very different, and it's like. Because the other problem is like you have people, if you have actual people like that, they're not reliable when you need them either. Like that's the thing. Is like so let's say you actually had the guy who was like the best fighter in the world, and you were going to cover for him. The problem is like if that was what your character was, you weren't reliable to be that when it was needed.
You can see that all through combat sports history. So champions that have self-destructed, and it's like. Well, so these traits are amazing when they're used properly and ordered properly. But the second they come out of that order, the second they come off the rails just a little bit, everything explodes with them.
And even when you have kings who are like horribly tyrannical, there's a long list of kings in history who got discreetly taken out by their bodyguards.
Oh yeah,
when they went crazy.
We talked about Alexander the Great the last show, and we were like, oh yeah, both of us were like, oh, you mean the guy who was assassinated? That guy? Yeah.
And it's like, so that is not. It's a very like, my problem with Game of Thrones is it's a very inaccurate depiction of feudalism, because it kind of sets up this system of absolute monarchy and absolute feudal loyalty, which is so unrealistic compared to what feudalism actually is. And like this like weird. Well, it's weird because like only the good guys have to worry about their retainers betraying them, but somehow the bad guys never have to worry about that. Like, and it's like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like there's Game of Thrones goes too far in kind of pressing its narrative, and then it does things with religion that are bonkers, right? Because it's like they have these religions, they have bona fide miracles, right? And people like, you know what actually happens if a warrior rises from the dead,
Well,
everybody immediately gets on board with this guy must be from the gods,
Yeah, that's what's happened.
and like, we're gonna follow him now. There's not this kind of like weird, oh my god, it's just so bizarre. They have like this religion, but nobody takes the religion seriously. Which is just, then why even have religion in your world building if it's a joke?
And see, this is why I think the term nerd has been hijacked, because it's like, okay, well, I think the same thing. If George R. Martin, I don't particularly like the guy, and I wish can we call him a dork or a geek or something? Like, he's kind of a dork. Let's go dork. I think he's kind of a dork. He has a motive that he's trying to, a message he's trying to push through.
I agree.
Jake Skywalker says, I think knights started using flails in duels to make themselves look like one of these small folk, like it was trendy at one point to use the flail, even though it was a commoner weapon.
That's very possible. I would have to look that up to be confirmed. But that is definitely possible, and that kind of thing happens historically. As weapons become fashionable, they become popularized by somebody using, like, somebody sees a knight who uses one really, really well, and they think, oh, like, that's so cool.
Yeah,
because that's what guys do.
It's like that with guitars, where they're like, oh, Slash plays a Les Paul, let me play a Les Paul. It's like, well, dog, you can try it, but you're not going to sound like that. Elite Super Grunt says, like Rampage Jackson's son. Actually, that fits what Sam is talking about. Do you know about what Rampage Jackson's son did?
I think I heard. I don't remember the full details. Right?
Basically, he jumped a pro wrestler in the middle of a show. A pro wrestler who mildly disrespected him and misunderstood what was a work and what wasn't. And Rampage Jackson's son went full crazy on him. That's for sure. Okay, Sam, let's rank the flail. You already kind of
I put it in D tier. It's in D tier.
We're going D tier. Let us know in the chat. What do you think? Josh, let me know, man.
They're so cool looking, but they're just not that useful.
Okay, so next up, I am going to go.
You had the War Club, the Aztec Club up there.
Okay, I'm going to go Aztec. Okay, we're going to go Aztec Club next. Okay, so this is the primary weapon that Cortez and the conquistadors found themselves up against when they came to the New World. This is an Aztec club specifically. You can see it's hardwood with these obsidian edges. See those black things around the edges there? Those are essentially, if you've ever seen an arrowhead made out of chipped flint, it's a bunch of those embedded around a giant like paddle, think of it. So it's effectively a sword. It looks really cool. I think there's few cooler looking weapons. I think it is a formidable weapon for a couple reasons. I think the sharp edge is great. It doesn't take a ton of skill to produce. It is effective.
Obsidian is very sharp. You can sharpen
it's
very easy
on Earth.
Yeah. It's very easy to sharpen obsidian into a extremely
obsidian and these woods were plentiful for them. Also, if the obsidian breaks, you still got a hell of a war club. You can use it. It doesn't become completely useless. It's like, okay, there's a good backup plan for this. But I think there are one more caveat. It certainly presented a challenge to the conquistadors. They were metal armored Spanish warriors. There was a bit of a learning curve for them in dealing with this. So, and also in what it's designed for in Aztec warfare, the end goal is to take prisoners for sacrifice. It is not to unalive your enemy. So it's specifically made in a lot of ways. You could think about this as a mace or a pepper spray or something, or a policeman's baton. It's a lot, and it's generally designed to be non-lethal because you can't sacrifice somebody that you already unalive. That's kind of defeats the purpose, right? So it was designed to wound, to incapacitate to some extent an enemy, and then bring them back so you can sacrifice them there. That all said, it's effective for that, but I think there are some significant drawbacks. The number one thing being that it's not a metal sword. It's only going to be useful to the degree that, okay,
you don't have metallurgy.
Yeah, it's just not a metal sword, so it's just not going to be able to combat metal weapons. Also, it is designed to wound and not to unalive. So against the Spanish, I said they had a learning curve. They did, but in case you haven't heard the whole story, and we have an episode on it, it didn't end well. It didn't end terribly well for the Aztecs. They weren't able to pull it off at the end. Also, congratulations to Mexico and their World Cup victory. I think Mexico and America just won. So good for you guys. I don't really keep up with the World Cup. It's a little much for me, but sounds like things are going well. So kudos. But the Aztec War Club looks very cool, has a lot of positives, but I think its drawbacks outweigh those positives rather significantly. So, too much controversy. Can I get a drum roll here? Can I get... Nice. I'm placing the Aztec War Club at D tier, folks. D tier. No offense to the Aztecs. Well, kind of you guys are a bunch of sacrificing psychopaths, but no offense to the Aztecs necessarily.
It's a great example. Another great example of a weapon that looks so cool, but is really just not that useful and just gets outclassed by other weapons of the same time.
And there's no disputing the first fact. It looks awesome. But it just doesn't stand up. Elite Super Grunt says D tier because of the fact you need to replace the blades and the club can break. Yeah, basically, it's not going to be able to take on metal weapons. Jake Skywalker says C tier.
It's very outclassed by metal weaponry.
It would hurt. Elite Super Grunt. Thanks, man, because I forgot to give you the actual name of the Aztec War Club. It's called... I love Aztec stories, but every time I've done an Aztec story,
Macahuitl? I don't know. I do not know
exactly
that either.
Every time I write a script, I have to repronounce
Macahuitl.
Macahuitl is what I'm going to go with. Macahuitl is the name of it. Elite Super Grunt says he agrees with Sam. D tier for the flail. I'd agree with him too. I think that's a good ranking.
Yeah.
And I've also got. I thought
it does make me sad because look, I love to use a flail in any kind of fictional setting, fictional game or whatever that I can. Flails, they just look so cool.
It's the same as the War Club. It looks super cool.
But they are just realistically not that practical.
It doesn't work out. Okay, so Sam, back to you. We are going. You're going to have to refresh my name.
This is a Francisca, the Frankish throwing axe. And yeah, so this is a the Francisca were the axes of the Franks, the Frankish Franks being one of the Germanic tribes that originated kind of in northern France, and become the Franks after the kind of fall of the Roman Empire falls, end up establishing what kind of becomes the Kingdom of France. What becomes France, right? I mean, and it is they are the original, well, not necessarily original French people, because you could say the Gauls were the original French people, but they are they found the kind of the Kingdom of France, right?
France.
Yeah, and they were known for two things. They were very good at using horses. So you see them. They adapt horses much earlier than some of the other kind of barbarian tribes, and to much greater effect, they kind of adapt a heavy cavalry. And then the other thing is the other kind of signature weapon are these throwing axes called the Francisca, right? And the
this is a throwing axe.
It's a throwing axe.
Okay.
It's both, right? Because so the way that these would work is a lot of the combat of that era, and actually for a lot of history is kind of based around shield walls, and like you advance in like shield walls against each other. And so what these, similar to kind of in a similar function like the Plambata or the Roman pilum, they were a good weapon to use in shield wall engagements, and you would carry several of them. So you would as you're approaching, again, you would throw them, but then you would also just use them in hand to hand. They were they were an extremely versatile weapon in that regard. Their shape made them very suited to throwing axes, but they were still very useful in as just a hand axe as well.
So would you just have like a belt with like a row?
Yeah, you would have a so like a belt or something with several of them attached, right? And you would like one of the things we said, we mentioned earlier is there was a lot of in the course of a battle, you would lose weapons, you would break weapons, would break. So one of the kind of ways around that is like, well, let's just have the Francisca was a great generalized weapon because you could both throw it. It was great against enemy shield walls because it would embed itself in the enemy shield, which either just breaks the enemy shield or ruins it because it's got an axe sticking out of it. And then you could immediately then grab another one and then throw, if they were still far away, like throw it again.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you know the band Blues Traveler, but the guy has like a big bandolier of harmonicas, and I'm getting like a Blues Traveler visual in my mind, except instead of harmonicas, you have throwing axes, but still.
And so I am going to disagree with Elite Super Grunt here. I'm actually placing the Francisca.
Let everybody know what Elite Super Grunt's comment is here. It's up on the screen.
He says C tier because you could carry many, but the enemy could retrieve them and throw them back. And I'm going to actually disagree with you here. And while yes, that's true to an extent, the way that they were used, like you would throw them right before the shield wall engages. You would not necessarily give your opponent a chance to, like, you would similar to the pilum, right? You would throw them and then you would like engage in the melee. So like by the time they're gonna like pull the axe out of their shield and try to throw it back, you're already on them. You're gonna have closed the distance.
So you're not throwing these from like 50 yards away, like 10 yards.
They're relatively short range, but they're extremely versatile. They're extremely flexible weapons.
I mean, if you think of it, if you're in a street fight, right? Like I always try to put it in these terms. Like there's firearms don't exist, and we have to have like a street fight, like South Austin versus North Austin, and we have to get behind shields, and then South Austin or North Austin just throws. Sam is in North Austin, a matter of fact, so we'd be on opposing sides. But they just throw, let's say, 50 axes at you, like 50 hatchets. That's terrifying. And then they storm on you. These are, if you really think about it, it's like, yeah, that's an incredibly effective weapon. That's terrifying.
And they got very good at using these in combat. And I am actually placing the Francisca in S tier.
Wait. Hold on. We got to give you a drum roll.
Drum roll.
Ready. Sam, where are you placing it?
I am placing the Francisca, and this may be controversial. I'm placing it in S tier.
Man, just breaking down what we just said, that's understandable.
This style of throwing axe was very for a period of time was kind of unique to the Franks. They got very good at using them. They're very aerodynamic with how they're shaped. They're very versatile. They're one of the in many ways they're kind of they go against the kind of the norms of weaponry, is that weaponry is specific and armor is generalized, right? We've talked about this before. And the Francisca was kind of a little bit of a reverse. You could use them in multiple situations. They were good at range. They were good in melee.
Yeah, if you're in a forest, that's not going to limit
you could carry a bunch of them. They were good against the enemy shield walls, but they were also good in kind of skirmish engagements as well. And so that's my reasoning for putting the Francisca in S tier. And for a while, like it's sometimes it's funny to think about that there's kind of this the French are the butt of a lot of jokes when it comes to the military. But that was not the case historically. Yes. for
It was the opposite.
It was the opposite of that, actually, for a long time. And
for centuries, not decades. Centuries.
There was pretty much, if the French had ever had the French were constantly hindered by the fact that they had horrible kings, and they had horrible kings. And like they didn't have kings who had the general support of their nobility. They had a lot of hostile neighbors that were terrified of them. They were terrified of their nobles ever uniting around a strong leader. Because when Charlemagne was the king of the Franks, right?
Yeah.
He conquered most of Europe. And these were weapons that would have been in his army, these Francisca, and like it was their military was actually one of the best in the Middle Ages. Just without,
I think it was one of the best up to World War I, and then everybody.
Yes, it was, and then it kind of, and then the technology left them behind, and it's
horrible leaders.
Horrible leaders. Yeah. But you look at every time the French have had a great leader, and they've conquered everybody.
Napoleon,
like way more than the Germans ever did.
Baminiana, I thought he said horrible kids too. That's why I had that. And I was like, well, that's a point.
But but look at like what the British fought them for 100 years and couldn't beat them.
Yeah, literally 100-year war.
Yeah. I mean, and granted, yes, the 100-year war was not like a constant,
I get it, I know, but like they don't call it that for nothing, right? Like were both world wars literally the entire war, entire world, every single country? No, but it was a world war.
Yeah. And it was like the 100-Year War ended with the English being driven out of France. So yeah, the French are actually in the Middle Ages are the kind of the superpower that people are actually afraid of. That if they ever kind of
actually moves to Avignon, France, right? Like,
what's that?
The papacy, the popes. There's
there's the Avignon papacy for a while. Which is another beginning of the history later, maybe, but it's the way that these kind of like the French were a military superpower that never had the leadership, or very rarely had the leadership to actually utilize them. They had very their leadership was very decentralized. They had they tend to have very weak kings. And very powerful local nobility who didn't want to listen to the kings, and many who wanted to just be their own kingdoms at various times. And in some cases, they actually did. The Burgundians did that. The Flemish did that.
But to the decentralized nature of it, France, in relation to Europe, is a large country, pretty large country. So it's like
with a large population,
right?
And it's good, and it's very fertile land. That is good at growing food. It has abundant resources, water, I believe iron as well. Like they've got a lot of natural resources.
And in general, a history of martial culture.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. And it's always amusing from the historian kind of perspective, right? Is to like,
yes,
every time people like joke about the French, being cowardly or whatever. It's like that really is a relatively modern
It would be like somebody saying, "Oh, the Yankees, they suck. The Yankees are like a really crappy baseball team." It's like, well, I'm not even telling you I love the Yankees. I'm just saying that it hasn't been the case up until, like it would be. They have a history of being very successful.
We're gonna have. Oh, come here, puppy.
Oh, we got a puppy time. We got some dog time.
She wanted some attention. Come here, Abby.
If we need a potty break, no problem.
She's good. I just wanted to show her because I like to show off my dogs.
Viewership always spikes when you show the dogs. What's up, Abby? I'm serious. People love seeing dogs.
Yeah. Do you like being seen, Abby? She says, I wasn't sure.
Those are our official HOKC mascots.
Yeah, you're yeah. It's the but
good point though. I think that's I would agree that's an S that the I forget the name of it, but the it's so tough. The Francisca.
The Francisca is actually going to be my S tier.
I'm going to go with that. I'd agree with that. And on that note, I'm going to bring up the War Club. Now, I'm interested to see what Josh has to say about this. And Josh, I checked my email, but I actually don't see an email from you yet. So let me know in the chat what you think about what I'm going to get into now. Elite Super Grunt wants to see the puppy again. If Abby's there,
I'll call her up in a bit. She's gone off somewhere to sleep. She's usually wants to be in bed by this time.
I'm not a puppy, so you're going to have to deal with me. So I'm going to talk about, I've got the War Club up next. Now, preface this with, this is, I believe, an Iroquois War Club. There are many different types of War Club. It varies on the geography of the tribe, on the culture of the tribe, on the materials available. There are times when metal war clubs, or when metal tips are stuck into war clubs. There's the musket butt war club. There are times when arrowheads are put into war clubs. This particular war club I chose for a reason. It is basically, if you're listening, akin to an Irish shillelagh. It's a ball end war club. It's just
I almost put the shillelagh on my list, but I kind of figured I didn't because it's like this. It's almost identical to.
And I think, all right, it'll be interesting to see what you think about my ranking. Now, these are utilized all over. I've done several episodes talking about like the Seminole use of the war club, the Apache use of the war club, the Comanche use of the war club. We've talked on the live stream about the Iroquois use of the war club. I just am a huge fan of this weapon. I find it disquieting because it's one of the creepiest weapons I think you can use. It is prolific, especially in early American history. A lot of the northeastern tribes and southeastern tribes were big fans of the war club because they had the wood necessary, and in these confines of heavily forested areas, in swamps, they aren't as limited as long lances or even bows and arrows. You can maneuver with them very quickly. And there's a term that you'll see all throughout colonial American history about knocking someone's head in. And they literally mean like caving someone's cranium in with this big bald war club. It's a ferocious weapon. I understand that it has drawbacks, mainly that very similar to the Francesca in some terms. The war club, not thrown as much. I'd be interested to see what Josh McAllister has to say on this. The war club isn't generally thrown as much. It requires a certain proximity to your enemy. You have to get in range and then club them. Obviously, they can break. It takes a fair bit of training, at least some training to use. But I am a big fan, just like I am of the shillelagh, of any war club, because it doesn't take that much training to be workable with it. Like you are just like swinging a club and smashing somebody in the head. So, there's different levels. You can be, but you don't need to be an expert to be proficient with it. Secondly, it's relatively easy to reproduce. Like you don't need a lot of materials. You just need a heavy log, a heavy limb to reproduce it. It can be produced in mass. It is silent. It's not going to, other than the impact, it's not going to make any noise. I think all of those make it an incredibly effective and incredibly underrated weapon, especially on the American frontier. And that is why I am going to rank it A tier. I'm not putting it S tier because some of the factors, it's not as utilized in throwing. Like I said, it requires that proximity. I think just going against firearms, it ran up against some trouble, some problems, but it was utilized continent wide. Like virtually every tribe has a form of war club, and that's because it was effective. So S tier, I don't know. You guys let me know what you think in the chat, but I'm very confident placing it in A tier.
I think that's fair. As A tier is fair, and I could even see an argument for B tier.
Yeah, but, I get it.
A lot of these weapons from the new world perspective, that one of the big kind of differences between the effectiveness of weapons in the new world versus effectiveness of weapons in the old world is how they interact with armor, and whereas other than the Spanish, like the initial Spanish invasion, right, especially Spanish conquistadors, you did not have a lot of armor. In fact, almost none.
No, the conquistadors were a specialized military force. Outfitting somebody, a whole force with armor, is a lot of money. It's essentially like sending out a special forces detachment. It's like, well, every soldier cost you hundreds of thousands, maybe $1 million. So they were a specialized force sent out by the king. Whereas, like, most of your other European immigrants, let's say, to this land were like peasants who were just trying to survive. So they didn't have
armor. They didn't have armor, and if they did, they had cloth armor. They get like gambeson, but even that was like had basically been not stopped being used a lot of times.
And then eventually, like in the northeast and the southeast, it rusts. There's a lot of problems with metal armor, and so like it's
expensive. It's expensive both to make and
if it breaks. You're going to be hard to repair it. So it was only here briefly. Honestly, it's a cool aesthetic. It was cool when it was here, but not. It wasn't.
But it's like, you can't, and that's why, like, again, right, why these kind of weapons weren't as common in Europe. Like you had the Irish shillelagh, which is almost identical to this kind of war club, but these weapons basically immediately go out of fashion when armor becomes more prevalent, because it's heavily negated by armor.
Now, you said you almost put the shillelagh on your list, and Josh McAllister is a great point. War club combat is a lost form of martial arts. And you'll see this in the Philippines with is it Eskrima? There's several. And also, what's the Japanese?
Pecheksala is also not the Philippines, but that's in Indonesia.
And the Japanese martial arts with the sword, with the samurai sword.
They also have bow staffs. They have
what's it called again?
Sojutsu is staff fighting in like with like a quarter staff or a bow staff.
And then also there's still a shillelagh martial art that's taught in the school. So it's all very similar, and it's all there's a long lineage of that in martial history.
There is, but it does kind of, war clubs are great, crack skulls, but if the minute you put somebody with a helmet on, right?
Interesting
it's like,
point.
Well, you might rattle them, but you might not actually, in fact, damage them substantially if they've got armor on.
Interesting point, though. He says it can be carried easily under garb, so that's
it's a great stealth weapon.
Positive. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Let me know what you think too. If we get these rankings right, let us know what you have them ranked at.
This is something. No, I want to point out something, because I think this is a relatively common misconception, that a lot of times in video games or RPGs or like tabletop RPGs or like fiction, you see blunt weapons be presented as a counter arm, like an anti-armor weapon, and that is not necessarily true. Like their blunt weapons are not necessarily it depends on the specifics, but are not necessarily like an anti-armor weapon, especially as armor gets more like as you get into more sophisticated armor.
We've talked about this before. You essentially had to pull someone to the ground and penetrate the armor.
Yeah, but you'll see a lot of times you'll see in like a game or something, like, oh, you have a mace that's better against enemy armor, and it's like I think it's pretty questionable whether that's actually the case. And you could see people test this with kind of take a suit of armor and see how much force is actually transferred by a mace, and it's the answer is not a lot.
No.
And it's not really any more than like a sword would if you just. Now you are less likely to damage, like you could hit somebody with armor with a mace, and you're not going to necessarily break it.
Someone with a suit of armor is they're like a walking tank.
Yeah. Plate armor makes you a god on the battlefield.
Charles says, "What about the tappy tappy? Have you heard of the tappy tappy?"
No, I have not.
I have, but you have to remind me what culture that's from. I've recently heard about the tappy tappy, and I'm just blanking on what. It's essentially a war club, like tappy tappy, right? Like you get whack whack. Sam, a question from Bama Deanna. Did the Persians have miniature bombs, or was that just a movie device from 300?
Okay, so yeah, that was a movie device from the movie 300. 300 is a great movie. I actually think that is a great movie, but it's complete. It's the purpose of that movie is the art. The art in that movie is it's a fantastic artistic movie. The commentary in 300 is also amazing. The kind of differing opinions of like what warrior like I love that movie. I actually really love that movie because I think it's really interesting.
Yes.
And I one of my favorite things about that movie is the Persian warrior elite are the monsters.
Yeah.
Right? Are the monsters, the hideous, the deformed, right? But then the like, and it's contrasted with the Spartan who are like these miniature gods, right?
Yeah.
Like just like the perfectly proportioned, 6-pack abs, and like they're the pinnacle of human beauty.
And that is how the Spartans would have viewed themselves. They would have thought like these people are monsters and we are perfect.
Yeah, and 300 is based off a graphic novel. And
Zack Snyder, right?
Yeah, Zack Snyder. It's an adaptation. He does the movie, but it's an adaptation of a graphic novel, and I believe it's actually fairly accurate. It's a fairly accurate adaptation of that graphic novel. I've not read the original graphic novel, so I would not know for that for sure.
Bama Deanna says the abs on those guys were spray painted on. I have to stand up for them. Gerard Butler did the work. Those guys got in shape. I used to be a personal trainer, and I looked at their workouts. They were working out for real. They were in good shape with maybe a little bit of a 90s baseball enhancements, if you know what I mean. But no, those guys they were in shape. It was legit.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like but the movie is a wonderful movie, but is complete baloney as far as what the military, like the tactics and like warfare was of the time. But complete nonsense.
My criteria or our official criteria here is like, well, does it spur your interest in the Spartans and the Peloponnesian Wars and it's like, yeah, absolutely. I know that's not the Peloponnesian War. Sorry, I'm just like talking. But yes.
But it's a wonderful movie. It's a beautiful artistic rendition of that, but no, they did not have bombs and like little grenades. Now I will say some things like that existed later and at various other points in history, and they may have existed in small numbers because people have been doing kind of various like putting like alchemy, right? The science, like the before it was kind of it's a discredited science now, but like alchemy was very much has been around for a very long time. People would try to like experiment with different things and put if we mix these kind of stuff, like maybe it's going to have this effect, and that's and
don't say that too loud in Austin. There's a lot of people on South Congress that have like apothecary shops, and they're like, oh well, you know how they do.
Yeah, I know, but it's a great movie, but it is not. It's a little bit like now. There are kind of grenade-like weapons that show up later and in limited use, both things like naphtha and Greek fire, but no, it was.
Says you could hurt someone with a stick of bamboo.
Well, yeah.
You could, right?
Yes, you could. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
bamboo was used as like quarterstaffs or kind of things.
So let us know what this odd-looking lawn care instrument is
Yeah,
here.
yeah. This is the one what I would have probably actually like done the side by side with the lance for you. But this is a Dacian falx. Sometimes called also a Thracian falx. They are the same thing. They're the same. There was a lot of crossover. This is sometimes also called like a rumpea. Falx, I believe, comes from the Latin word that what the Romans called them.
Okay, so this originates from Rome?
No, this is the enemies of Rome and used very effectively. So this is the Dacian falx. This is in some ways, this is kind of the earliest versions of like a two-handed sword almost. But it's kind of a cross between a polearm and a sword.
Yeah, it's got this curved blade. Is it sharp on both sides?
No, it's only sharp on that on the inner side, right, where the curve is. And I'm not exactly sure where I'm putting the falx yet. I think there's a good argument for both S and A tier. I'm going to think about it, but I'm going to describe what these are and how they were used. These were used primarily by a group of people called the Dacians. Dacia was in modern-day Romania. The Dacians were wiped out so thoroughly by the Romans, like that we don't know a whole lot about them other than what the Romans recorded. The famous like Trojan columns were built to commemorate his victory over the Dacians in Rome.
So these aren't modern day Romanians, the Dacians.
They're descendants of a mix, but like there is a reason Romania is called Romania is because again they were wiped out so thoroughly by the Romans, and then they named the area after themselves, right?
Switch the name. It makes sense. Makes sense. Okay.
And so these were used by both they originated from the Dacians. No, Spartacus was a Thracian. So Thracia is
the elite
south
super
of
run
Dacia.
is asking, was Spartacus a Dacian?
Yeah, so Thracia would be south of was a Thracian, and Thracians and Dacians they were like their tribes were related, but they were not necessarily the same. Thracians were kind of the same groups of like barbarian peoples, but they kind of were more Hellenized than the Dacians were. They mixed. They were south of where the Dacians were in kind of more in like modern day Bulgaria, and even the like the like where Constantinople is, like the parts of Europe that are by Turkey. That's where where Thracia was.
Istanbul?
And the Thracians were was that
Istanbul? Never heard of it.
Yeah, and the Thracians were similar to the Dacians, but they were more they adapted more to like a Greek style of government and the Greek ideas, and they would speak a mix of I think local languages and also Greek. Whereas the Dacians were kind of the more like original barbarian group, and the weapons themselves are like this. I believe the origin is in Dacia, and you have the smaller like one-handed versions are called like a Sika. Those come from Illyria, which is like modern day Albania. I want to say, yeah. But these were two-handed weapons. They were pole arms. They're kind of like short. They're really kind of an in between like a pole arm and a two-handed sword almost. But they're
how long is this?
How long is a foul? So you had one-handed versions and you had two-handed versions, but the more common were the two-handed versions. I'm gonna look that up.
So maybe 3 feet, like 36 inches.
We're gonna look this up. No, it's between 5 and 6.5 feet.
Okay. Oh,
they're big.
Long.
They're big. Yeah, okay. They're big. They were
This is it like a scythe? Would they have used it to like harvest fields? It looks like something you could. It's kind of if you're just listening, it's like
I
a
don't
scythe,
know that.
like a sword scythe.
These were weapons of war. These were extremely effective weapons of war, and they were designed to they were incredibly effective at fighting against the Romans. The downside is that is that they're two-handed weapons, so they don't allow you to use a shield.
Right.
But the advantage is that they a lot of times these would just cleave through the Roman shields and armor. And you would.
Is this something you would use like from behind your own shield wall? Like
no, you would just charge. You would just charge in with these. Like
shoot.
This was a ferocious weapon, right? Ooh. You would charge in, and you could kind of basically hook like the hook around their where the enemy like around the enemy shield and just basically carve straight through it. The size and weight and shape of them allowed them to basically just rend through. Like these were. The Romans had like plenty of accounts of people just being cleaved in half by these.
This is a 6 foot long blade.
Yeah, through their armor and everything. Like these were big.
So would you just have a whole line of Thracians coming at you?
You would have a whole Dacians, but yes, but you just chart a whole line of people charging at your line, and you just they would be very kind of lightly armored a lot of times, and there would be like there'd be shock infantry, and it would just rip through. The Romans fought several wars against the Dacians, and they did not get the better of them at first. The
Romans presented an unsolvable problem to a lot of military forces because it was like, how are we going to break through this shield wall? Yeah, and so this looks like, let's pull the shield down and hack them in half.
Yeah, and like sometimes it's just a single swipe. We're just going to do that. And they were eventually basically whittled down by the Romans over the course of several wars.
No pun intended.
What does Hellenized mean? Hellenized means So when you see that like the Hellenic era to kind of define like the Greek, the era of like Greek expansion, right? Comes from Helen of Troy, is the kind of is where it comes from. In the Hellenic peoples are the kind of people of Greek descent who settled in different areas. What Hellenized means is basically they adapted Greek culture, right? A Greek culture, Greek like philosophy, learning, and such, and also a lot of times the Greek language, and the Greeks were the Greek city-states were not necessarily conquering forces in some ways. They went and settled other places. They established cities throughout the Mediterranean and also in other places in Europe. But there wasn't, other than Alexander, you have like a Greek empire necessarily. You had smaller kingdoms at various times, but it was a significant cultural force in that whole time period, and their culture spread much further even than their actual peoples spread.
Right. Yeah.
And so the Thracians were a group that they were a barbarian tribe, but they were a much more Hellenized barbarian tribe. They adapted kind of to a mix of like the Greek way of fighting, Greek language, Greek philosophy, Greek kind of political science and such. So Sicca's, So Thracian, I got mixed up because in the HBO show he uses a Sicca. Siccas were also used by Thracians. Like Siccas are sometimes the one-handed version of this type of weapon. And then sometimes Siccas are like little daggers too. So it's kind of Siccas come from Illyria. The Illyrians are also kind of a group of people, like a tribe of people that are similar to the Dacians and the Thracians. They're all kind of the Balkan peoples had their own kind of they had some of their own kind of cultural makeup.
And it still has this curved blade, even the one-handed version.
Yes, and it's a similar style of blade, but it's a one-handed version. It's the Sicca, and Siccas get actually used a lot in gladiatorial combat. because they were used by the Illyrians, who were again another enemy of Rome early on. They ended up getting conquered by Rome, but they fought long and hard against the Romans, and the Romans, like they would adapt weapons that other people's used, and happy to do so. And
if you've ever seen Gladiator, they always introduce each fight that Russell Crowe is going to participate in with an explanation, very brief, but it's tucked in there, about the opponent that he's facing. At least at the Colosseum battles, they will say, this is Hannibal of Africar, and it's like they show the chariots coming in, or they will introduce the history of the other fighters that he's facing, and they're always derivatives of former Roman enemies, and it's there to illustrate the story of Rome along with this gladiatorial combat.
Yeah, they would show off. They would do the mock battles, and they would show off the kind of Roman victories, right?
It's all with the intention of showing the power and the reach of the empire. Like, none of this stuff is on accident. Like, it is all a very cohesive narrative. In fact, Space Cowboy jumps in and says, "What's up? Hey, what's up, Space Cowboy? Actually, I got a surprise for you, bro. Round of applause. Good to see you." This isn't late. We usually start at 10. It's like 7 p.m. streams are early. This is like our normal time.
But do you want to give me a drum roll for my
I'll use a double sound effect. So Sam, where are we?
I think I'm actually placing the Falcons in A tier, not in S tier.
Oh, I thought we were going S tier. Okay.
And I will say the reason is because it does have a kind of a critical flaw in that, because of it's a two-handed weapon. You can't use it with a shield.
Fair.
It's a very effective shock weapon, but it's not a versatile weapon necessarily.
Fair. Okay, that's a good point. How difficult is it to produce?
If you have, as long
I'm not asking because I want to make one. I'm just asking.
This is like, of the weapons that I picked, this is probably going to be the most intensive because it requires the most metal. You'd have to have enough. You'd have to have sophisticated enough metallurgy to be able to make these, and access to good quality iron. So I would say fairly sophisticated. But
let us know in the chat what you guys think. Where are we going? What is the name of this one again?
The Dacian Falx. It's like FALX.
Where do you guys have this ranked? Let me know in the chat. Let us know if you agree. If you disagree, let us know. We want to hear your rankings as well.
Sometimes you will also hear these called like a Rumpea. I do not know what the difference is. But that's the same weapon, but I think they're different time periods called the different things. Because I believe Falx is like what we call them is like Falx is a Latin. It's from a Latin word. What the Dacians themselves called them, we probably don't know, because there is very little survived of the Dacian culture and language. Like there's I don't believe that they have any, like there's any written records that from of their own language or anything, because they kind of incurred the wrath of Rome too many times, and they got
FAFO. F around, find out.
Yep. Yeah. Well, pretty much.
Elite Supergrad says it should be S tier. I was kind of thinking you were going to put it S tier.
No, I'm putting it in A tier again because it's not a very versatile weapon.
That's fair.
And it's a great shock weapon, but it doesn't have like the versatility that the Francisca has. And
does it make up for that with its simplicity of use, though? Because it doesn't look like it takes a lot of training.
It doesn't necessarily. It does take a lot. I think it takes enough physical strength though to use. Now I'm keeping it in A tier. I'm not moving it.
We're not arguing. We're not trying to sway you. Just questioning.
Now, like I think there's an argument for S tier because of how effective it was against the Romans that really did not have a good way of countering it, and they basically beat the Dacians by just being able to raise more armies than the Dacians were. They had a lot more bigger population, and over the course of several campaigns, were able to just, over many years, were able to eventually just to wipe them out.
There's a lot to be said for that. That's how a lot of nations, empires win wars. Okay, well, let's move. I'm going to go move on to my final weapon of the night. And I mean, so a lot of people wouldn't consider this a weapon. I think a lot of times the shield is seen as purely a defensive measure, and in point of fact, it is. But I think it's such a valuable defensive measure. And like, look, we can preface that with it. Yes, I understand that shields can be used to batter an opponent, can be used offensively as well. I want to talk about them purely in their defensive capacity, but just how important that was, and what a valuable offensive capacity that was, especially for the native tribes as well. Going into the 19th century, you're really looking at how can I combat firearms. They past the 1840s, and even before the 1840s, this was a new introduction to combat for the native forces. And the rawhide shield that is especially prevalent on the plains, I think, is wildly misunderstood and wildly underrated. They were, in a lot of ways, like the bow, like they're composite layers. It's a layer upon layer upon layer of rawhide. Most of the time, buffalo rawhide. If you've ever seen a buffalo skin, it's incredibly thick, and you layer that and layer that and layer that, and you end up with a shield. Well, this is a good example. It is maybe 36 inches in circumference. It doesn't cover your whole body. It's usable on horseback, but it's not even necessarily terribly thick or terribly heavy. But if you angle it correctly, especially with muzzle loading weapons, it can deflect bullets. So it doesn't make you impervious to bullets, but it is an effective defensive measure against firearms. And it was all the way until really the final plains battles in the 1870s. Obviously, higher caliber weapons are going to be more and more effective against it. Obviously, certain locales of battle don't allow for the use of shields, like in forests and really confined areas of operation. But in general, I think the shield freed up tribes to utilize other weapons. I think it was much more effective against gunfire than people really understand. And for that, I'm kind of iffy on where I'm deciding on the spot of the spur of the moment, but I am going to place it in A tier. Yes, that's right. A tier, a defensive weapon in A tier. I think it deserves it merits a lot of respect. That might be shocking to some. I don't know what Sam thinks about that, but I
think that's fair, and I also think that you almost put it. I would almost put it in S tier because this is the only armor that they really had in the plains warfare.
Yeah.
was these shields.
Have you ever heard of
armor? Armor is king in war up until firearms.
If you ever
and
heard
even after, in many cases,
there are instances of chiefs, especially because this is kind of a merit and something you had to earn, or it could get passed down. But there are half dozen or so, there may be more instances of native tribes that acquired conquistador armor, and it would be passed down through the generations. But there was one instance of a chainmail shirt, which I don't know if I believe the chainmail, but there are several instances of armored breastplates that were really valued and handed down. There's a Comanche chief named Iron Jacket who was really famous for, wearing his suit of armor. And there's also an instance of mountain men. Somehow they got a hold of an entire suit of armor, and they would wear it around like a joke. Like, look at me, I got a full suit of armor. They were kind of fun guys. It would be fun to party with the mountain men because they were just like, hey, I got a full suit of armor. Let me wear it around. They were having a good time. But in general, yes, the shield is pretty much the only defensive measure. And I think a lot of people think that once you got firearms, you could just shoot right through the shield. That's not necessarily the case.
even like the cuirasses the conquistadors had, your firearms would not have penetrated that a lot of times.
Yeah. And as you today's firearms, would like an AR-15 penetrate a rawhide shield? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the higher caliber rifles would penetrate plate armor now too, but it's not at those times that they didn't necessarily.
Much more formidable than I think most people think. Elite Super Grunt says, I heard that Scottish Highlander shields were able to deflect bullets. You know anything about that?
I do not know about that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Now, fun nerdy history topic. If you don't have metal to make armor, there are other materials you can make armor out of. Bone, wood armor has existed historically. There's kind of lacquered materials. All right. So what is the there's a really important reason though that those things are massively inferior to metal. Not necessarily, and it's not necessarily in the fact that metal is just like better at deflecting stuff. It's that they have those types of armor have a specific weakness that metal doesn't have. Does anybody want to take a guess as to what it is?
Let me see. Let me get some guesses, guys. What's up, Indian Wildcat?
Give them a chance.
Give them some guesses.
Rawhide shields. These are going to have a specific weakness. Doesn't necessarily come up in this kind of warfare, but there is a if there had been like a need to develop like specific countermeasures to these things. I'm thinking of let's see. No, but
Josh McAllister says
possible. But it's actually I'm actually thinking of let's the opposite of that.
It gets wet, so it gets. So we're talking about like samurai type of armor.
Yeah, but other kind of types of wooden armor, bone armor. Not bone as much, but other things like leather and that you would make armor out of. Like what is the way that historically these things have gotten countered?
They dry and break, says Elite Super Grunt.
That's true, but there's a more specific one.
Josh McAllister says rain and wetness greatly affected bowstrings and arrows, especially the fletching.
That's true, but there is a Josh, you got it.
Fire.
Right? The big reason why metal is superior to these other types of things is metal doesn't catch on fire. Wooden armor and shields, right? They are extremely susceptible to getting caught on fire and fire-based warfare was a big part of warfare for a long time. Now by the time these kind of wars against the Plains, it was not as big of a thing because firearms had kind of invalidated the need for that.
Sure. Yeah.
And artillery had kind of invalidated the need for that. But for most of history, fire-based warfare was a huge part of warfare. And there's an entire chapter in Sun Tzu's The Art of War on attacking with fire. And it's like, how to do it, when to do it, and it's one of the chapters that doesn't have necessarily as much modern relevance because it's kind of dated, but it's fire-based warfare is the secret kind of fire is actually the ultimate weapon in so many cases in
that's absolutely
in
true.
warfare, and it is the both the psychological impact of fire and the effectiveness of fire on the battlefield.
Even on the frontier, it's very common to get the tribes love to corral your enemy in one area, be it a building or in a grove of trees or whatever, and then burn everything around it and just burn it and burn it and burn it until it burned around you.
And so the big disadvantage of having wooden armor or leather armor is that if it gets caught on fire, all of a sudden you're attached to something that's caught on fire.
You're in like a giant flame suit.
Yeah, and then
Really?
it's like so this is a thing that happens in history. It's why you don't see wooden armor, like you see limited use of wooden armor um, throughout history. But one of the reasons you don't see it more common is because it has a really critical weakness.
Yeah, that I would just go without. I would take my chances. I just don't. I don't want to die in a fire
If it gets
escape.
caught in fire, you're gonna die. That's not a. It's pretty bad.
Josh makes a really good point here. Natives used fire in numerous ways, like we are just talking about. They used it martially, but they also used it for shaping the environment. They did controlled burns. People do not realize that today. They think the last things that native tribes would ever do would be to purposely burn the environment. But they understood burning out underbrush. They understood environment management much better than the state of California does today. That's why they keep having wildfires. Truly,
Yeah, that's true.
it's they really did.
And you are correct, Josh, too, that wood is heavy, it's cumbersome, but in areas where you don't have access to metal, you still see it come up as used as armor, but you don't see it as prevalent when you don't see it. I think the main reason you don't see it prevalent in when you have access to in civilizations that have access to metal is that it does have that critical weakness. Yeah. So
Bandana says, I used a flamethrower on a spider with 1 million babies on its back. Way to go. Good call. That's what I would do.
yeah.
The
Spiders
spider
have
was
no
having
souls.
a bad effect.
They deserve to die.
Yeah, take the spider out.
Ugh, I don't like spiders. Gross.
Wouldn't metal armor burn the person wearing it?
No, metal doesn't catch on fire.
But
It
would
would
if you're surrounded by flames.
If you're surrounded by flames, you could still die from that, obviously. But it's from some kind of fire-based attack, and people did. But you're not going to get into a situation where the thing you're actually wearing catches on fire and you're basically you're done. You could if there's fire all around you and you're wearing metal armor, you can run to safety.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Without like you can theoretically run to safety, get away.
And if you can't run to safety, nope. I mean,
you can't run to safety when the thing you're wearing catches on fire.
Yeah.
And then it's like you're stuck.
Melt again. Josh McAllister's to that same point.
Not fast enough. Like it would take. You would have to be stuck in that situation for a long period of time.
Yeah, that's true.
For it to actually start to melt.
Well, Josh says
you're also not wearing the metal directly against your skin, in metal armor, right? So the way armor worked in the kind of European armor, right, is you had layers of armor. At the base layer was often a kind of a padded cloth called gambesson. And then sometimes over that you would wear like chainmail, and then over that you would have the metal plates, right? And that's a generalization because there's different types of armor, different time periods, and whatnot. But it would depend on the situation. But the thing is like if somebody like throws something, like some naphtha or even like Greek fire, like Greek fire might still get you. But it's not to the same level that it doesn't have that weakness. It doesn't mean it also doesn't like it takes a lot more fire to damage somebody wearing metal armor than it takes it doesn't take that much fire to catch something on to catch a wooden shield or a rawhide shield or like armor on fire, and then it's like you're how fast can you strip that off? And it's like, well, probably not fast enough to get away with little injuries. Yeah. So
one thing I don't think we've talked about, but I was watching a documentary while I was writing. They would oftentimes, because yes, how are you going to burn metal with flame? Okay, fair. Yeah. But they would use oil, right, to prevent I'm blanking on the word now because it's so late, but attacks on castles, right? So they would use oil. You use big pots of oil and dump them down.
Well, so big pots of oil is
sand too, right?
It's a Hollywood. There is evidence of people using boiling oil in sieges, right? But the chances are you're actually way more likely to see like boiling water
and boiling sand
yeah,
too. That was their
yeah.
point in this video. They would heat up
Is
sand and then dump it down there, which sounds terrible.
boiling oil is like again, it's a Hollywood thing. Like there is evidence of that being used in siege warfare, but it's why would you bother boiling oil when a cauldron of boiling water is probably a lot easier to get and a lot safer to deal with, and also it is going to do the exact same thing. You pour a bunch of boiling water on somebody wearing armor, it's gonna do the same kind of thing, you know.
Let's go to this one first. Oil was too expensive and too precious to just pour on people. On people.
Yeah. Like you would use boiling water or sand that was heated up or something. Yeah, like it was. There's way. Yeah. So fire is the super S tier, the S plus, tier weapon.
It is, isn't it? Like fire is ultimately what took out Dresden. It's like this fire bombing, and even
fire is also the reason this is used in warfare for so long too is, aside from the physical effects of fire, the psychological effects of fire are profound. Nobody wants to get hacked to death with a sword, right? But you really, really don't want to get caught on fire.
No, absolutely.
It's like top 5 way, like most painful ways to die. Possibly number 1, right? I mean,
that's my lead. That's the last choice for me.
So murder holes in castles are.
Let's tell everybody what the question is real quick. Yeah. Is that what murder holes are for in castles?
Yeah, in part, but yes. Is they're I'm gonna look that up because
what is a murder?
I know what you're talking about, but
I
want to look at an example while I.
So it's like a hole in the wall that you can attack from.
Yeah, so it'd be a hole in the wall in a wall or a tower that was kind of where it was positioned. Somebody like from a shielded position could either pour something through it or shoot something through it. And be protected, like down on people who were trying to get through the gate or whatever. So yes,
awesome band name too.
They got very people got very intricate with castle design and fortification design, and like making really like. You got to think that like sometimes some of these castle designs were come up with by some really sick people, like who was like, wow, how can we just turn this into a death trap? It's like there's the same people who make the Saw movies now. It's like those people were the ancient castle designers.
But it is also to play devil's advocate, like that's your last stand. If you're in the castle, you're in the most dire of situations. So you need to pull out every last stop.
Yeah, now you want to get into really fun castle design, start looking at Japanese castles. And then you get into some really twisted.
What's unique about them?
So they didn't have the same amount of the same kind of resource, like access to stone in Japan. They'd had stone, but things were much more commonly made out of wood. So you couldn't build these kind of like a lot of the fortifications of Japanese castles were designed to be death traps. So you would have like basically they'd be made. You would lead people into mazes, and just they did some pretty horrific things that would happen. Yeah.
Let's bring up a picture of one real quick so you guys have an idea of what the. So
this is a Japanese castle.
Hajime? I believe Hajime Castle, Himeji Castle,
Himeji, yeah. You might have a hard time finding a good picture of like a castle that's still around. That's like an actual, like a lot of them, like much of what happens to European castles too, is when sieges no longer become super common. They become more decorative. That's when castles just become palaces over time. And the more intricate and elaborate they get. But yeah, a lot of Japanese castles, though, during their actual periods of warring states, right? They would have a lot of the fortifications were a lot of times designed to kind of lure you in, and you'd get like
trapped.
You're trapped in in like corridors that like didn't lead anywhere, and then you would just be rained down on from above. And like they were, it was pretty bad, right?
Pretty bad.
Sieges were the last resort for both the army being besieged and the army doing the besieging. Nobody wanted to let's take a castle today. Like that was like nobody really wanted. Like if you could avoid having to take the castle, it was ideal.
So I just got some messages from Josh here. I want to show you guys some of the weapons that Josh has made. I don't know if I can bring them. Okay, yes. Josh, I'm having a hard time pulling these up, but let's take a quick look real quick so everybody can see what a War Club properly made looks like. Bring this up real quick. Share screen. Oh no, I lost it. I don't know where it's at. Oh, I'm having a tough time bringing these up, Josh. I'm sorry. Entire screen window, maybe. No, entire screen. I'm trying to do this on the fly, Josh, so I apologize. I'll give it one last shot here. Can I? Okay, this isn't a great job, but I think I can do it this way. Share. Okay, so now everybody can see. Can you explain these a little bit, Josh, what we're looking at? So I believe Josh made these. Is that like a scalp on the end of it? I know it's not a real scalp, but we're looking at stoned head. He's rounded one of the edges on these into kind of a conical point, and the other one is kind of rounded, and there's tribal designs. There's like leather or string wrapped around the handles. Very intricate. I'm sure I wonder if that's like, I didn't make all of these. Okay, so Josh didn't make these. He's just showing them as an example. I made the one in the video. I'm having trouble getting them uploaded, but I'm doing my best on the fly. The left one is the Lakota. So the conical shaped head one is the Lakota tribe, and the right is the Apache. And is that like like a mock scalp added to the end of it, or horsehair? These are beaded handles. That's cool.
That's what I was guessing.
Horsehair, is that horsehair attached to the end? Very cool though. I mean, I wouldn't want to get hit in the head with these. They kind of look like, to your point, like a flail, and like if you took the chain off of a flail. That's a horsehair. Very cool, man. I wouldn't want to get hit with any of those.
So, do you know why you sometimes see horsehair below the base of a like you have the like tip of a spear, and then you'll have like some kind of like a thing of horsehair like on the spear beneath that?
No, why do you?
It actually serves a purpose. It's not just decorative. If you stick somebody with it, it absorbs the blood, some of the blood splash.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
I was like, well, is it for infection? Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's what I worry about when I use my spear. So we got a question. The Apache one moves around.
I don't know if the innuendo was intended or not.
No, it wasn't. Excuse me. You know what? Interesting point here. This is kind of a flail. Like that. Josh says this right here is it whips around like a flail. That's like a cord.
Interesting.
I did not know.
I mean, it's not surprising that you would come up with some of the same kind of designs, right?
All right, let's go. Elite Super Grunt says the scene from the Vikings when they attacked Francia and the giant spike wheel came. You ever watch the Vikings?
I have not watched that. I've seen a bunch of clips from it, and the clips did not make me want to watch it.
Why is that? What's the hang-up?
They do some things in that I think are just like really irritate me when shows do. I have yet to see a clip of Vikings where Christianity is not portrayed negatively.
Oh, yeah, that sucks.
I don't know. I've never watched the show, so I don't know if that's actually true. But I get really tired of those portrayals because it's not necessarily historical, and it's also not, it's dumb Hollywood stuff where you don't where like I don't know. It frustrates me.
They found coins, Viking coins of it's Christ, but he has like a sword or like a spear. It's like a militarized Christ because that's the only way they could they contextualize him. But they were converted. It was like, and you had to convert them through this like militarization of Christ. They were like, oh, he's like the conqueror. He has like a
spread,
spear.
and eventually it does spread, right? I mean, and it's like Christianity does spread to Scandinavia eventually. Like,
the first few seasons of Vikings is good, says Elite Super Grind.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I think that the shows start out good and then they get sensationalized and then they have to keep one-upping themselves and then they get to the point where things are absurd.
I agree with you. It is tiresome when they just make a point of denigrating Christianity. Even if I wasn't a Christian, like any religion, they go out of their way to like really make a point. Obviously, Christianity first and foremost, but like, yeah, it's like you have an agenda here.
Yeah, I get tired of that portrayals in Hollywood. It's just it's tiresome because it's like it's like
it's just tiresome. It's like okay, it's been going on for such a long time that it would be more revolutionary to do the opposite.
That's one of the reasons I like Kingdom of Heaven, because I don't think Kingdom of Heaven does that. I think that movie is one of the very few exceptions where there are like it shows the good and the bad. It shows some of the people are fanatical on both sides.
Sure.
Right? About like the Muslims and
that's how it was.
That's how it was.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's like a whole lot of good, decent people just trying to live their lives and be good people.
Because it's just like, hey, virtue is a real thing. We don't need to make everything as cynical and as laboriously I see my vocabulary, but like forcing a message into it so much.
So I've not seen the Northman movie. It's been on my list of ones to watch as well. The other one we definitely need to watch because it's my favorite movie with Vikings in it, and it says this may shock people if you even know about this movie because it was kind of it was a box office bomb when it came out, and I think it's a great movie. It's one of my top 5 movies of all time.
I'm trying to think of it. A Viking movie? Oh. The 13th
we probably talked about
dude, yes, absolutely.
13th Warrior is 13th Warrior is I will say is the best movie adaptation of a Michael Crichton novel, and that includes Jurassic Park.
And it's historically based. It's a real account.
No.
The Muslim traveler, the Islamic traveler, was a real guy. He really had a.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I'm almost positive.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
I do not think that's true.
I
think there were Muslim travelers. There were Muslim travelers who had accounts of the Vikings.
That's what it was.
The actual story is
no, not the real story, like the monsters in the mountains and stuff. Not
because you know what the story is, right?
Well, like
it's a retelling of a mythological story. But what story specifically? Do you know? It's Beowulf.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a retelling of Beowulf from this perspective.
I was put on the spot for that. I would have come up with that. Easy to say, but I love that movie. I think it does an amazing portrayal of the Vikings. It's a great story, like a great fish out of water story. It's a great story. This is one of the many times in Antonio Banderas' career where he plays an Arab. But he pulls it off.
Yeah. He's a Spaniard, so he's probably is descendant of of Arabs. Like a lot of Spaniards are, right? That's Spanish is Latin with an Arabic dialect.
Exactly. No, it is. It's exactly right.
Spanish is.
Okay, look. It says I asked Google, and it says the 1999 movie, The 13th Warrior, is a fictionalized version, obviously, of a real historical account by 10th century Islamic traveler and diplomat Ahmad ibn Falahad. That's that.
Yeah. And I didn't actually know that, but it's still one of my favorite movies of all time. It's in my top 5. I love that movie. admittedly part of my love of that movie is that it was a movie that my dad really wanted to show me, but my mom wouldn't have let me watch, and so he had to wait till my mom was out of town for something.
It's
and
a
we
good
watched that one.
There's nothing like inappropriate in it.
It's pretty gory. Like
it's gory, but there's nothing like racy in it.
No, well, there's a little bit. Not, but even the there's a fade that all the racy stuff's fade to black, right? It's not even.
Yeah.
It's a great movie though. Love the movie.
It is a great movie. Absolutely.
It is like a true. It's so weird to me that one it was a bomb in the box office.
It's true,
right?
Truly, yes.
Classic. Like it really. It's a great. It is a great guys movie. Like it is like the quintessential like. Little band of brothers taking on the world. You
could take your bro to it who has no interest in history, and he'd be like, "This is a great movie. This is like a '90s action movie."
We should watch that movie. Absolutely, at one point. I love that movie. It's again one of my top 5 movies of all time.
It is a legit '90s action movie. It's there's history in it, but like it is not. It's the action movie aspect of it isn't lost. A great final battle. They have the duels between the Vikings.
The pinnacle of that movie shows the pinnacle of masculinity. Right?
Remember, she's giving him stitches, and he says, "Ow," and she says, "That's the sound a woman makes." And
I know, it's so great. Because it's really a coming of age story, right? It's a mix of like a coming of age and a fish out of water story,
and it's a traveler story. He's like shocked by everything, and ingratiates himself into the culture.
It's so exactly, and like it's like they start to appreciate him, he starts to appreciate them, and he grows up because he's a in the movie. The rundown of this movie is right. You've got this basically this rich Arab poet who gets thrown out of Baghdad because he seduces another man's wife, and the Caliph doesn't like that, right? So he gets like sent as an emissary to this like far northern tribe, right? He gets exiled. Along the way, to get to this place where he's supposed to go be an emissary, he runs into this band of Vikings,
who look like a biker gang. They're they're brigands.
Yeah, and so he ends up kind of like talking with, and in the course of, so he meets this group of Vikings. They're there to like bury their king had just died, so they do like a Viking funeral. And he's like,
they show it explicitly, like every little part of the Viking funeral is played out. The sacrifice of the slave girl, everything.
Yep, and they like while they're like feasting afterwards, a visitor from their homeland comes and says their homeland is under this like great threat, and so they call for like an oracle who like says that like 13 men have to go face this threat.
Another
so like scene. One by one, like 13 guys are 12. So one by one, 12 of these Vikings who are like, these guys all look like they're just straight up killers, like the big, strong.
A biker gang that just got done lifting weights.
Exactly. They volunteer, but before they get to the 13th volunteer, the oracle says, wait, the 13th man can't be a Northman, can't be a Viking, right? So they all look around, and by dint of being the only non-Viking there, this Arab guy gets drafted to go with them.
And he's like, WTF? He's like, I'm not a warrior. I'm
language. He's a poet, right? He is like, he's small, he's wimpy, but they're not taking no for an answer. Nope. He's gonna go with them. But over the course of this,
fun of him for being small and wimpy. It's not
for having a little tiny horse, But over the course of, but he's also, but on the contrast, he's educated. He's very well educated.
Yep.
He was raised in Baghdad, like a high class family. He has a good education. So they over the course of this adventure, that he starts to like appreciate their ways. He teaches himself to speak their language.
And continues to kind of ingratiate himself and accept their culture,
accept them, and they in turn appreciate him because again he's smart, he's educated, he knows things that they don't,
And they could tell he's got guts. Like they could tell he's not.
He's not actually a
warrior.
coward. He's not a great warrior, but he's not a coward, and he's not. They go on this adventure. Many of them died.
It happens. It's pretty cool. Even the way they go out is pretty cool, though.
My favorite scene in the movie is when they're fleeing through the cave to this enemy from those enemies that they had just like assassinated their queen, they're all running. One of the Vikings like stops and he's like out of breath, and like and Antonio Banderas' character stops with him, and like he looks at him and says, "I think I've run about as far as I care to."
Yeah.
And then he says, like, today was a good day.
Yeah.
Like, go boy.
So awesome.
Like, he just decides, like, you know what? This is where I die.
My other favorite scene is the one-on-one duel where he thinks,
oh my gosh. Yeah. Erger's one-on-one duel with the so when they arrive at there's a great scene when they arrive at this at the home of this king Hrothgar, right? And the king's son starts to kind of challenge the leader of this group, who's Bulvaif. So they start to kind of like challenge his authority, right? And so they decide to make an example of one of the warriors of Prince Wiglaf's like, warriors. Yeah. And so not none of the 13 of the different guy, right? So this is one of they've come to assist.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
to assist the king with this enemy that they're facing. But the prince is convinced that he's here to steal the kingdom and whatever, so he starts to undermine them and spread rumors and whatnot. So in order to kind of like make an example of the prince and they find one of the prince's minions who's a big guy, and they get one of the 13th to go pick a fight with him.
He's like kind of their smallest guy.
Yeah, he's the small guy. Yeah. He's the Joker, the bard. So they.
But he's got crazy eyes. Like he's got crazy eyes. Like don't mess with him.
They start with this duel. They go through this duel and they like each have 3 shields, and like this much younger, bigger guy.
Explain that real quick. Yes, they have 3 shields. Like they're gonna get each guy gets 3 shields, and once you've gone through those, you get no more shields.
No more shields, right? And so they this bigger, younger guy very easily just destroys the 3 shields without losing any of his. Right, and it very much looks to everybody else like for a minute that this guy's like, oh, he bit off more than he could chew. He's fighting a bigger, younger guy, but then right as the big guy goes to finish him, he just casually flips around and takes off his head, and proving that like it was all an act. Yep. He was never actually threatened by
Antonio Banderas is shocked too because he doesn't think they're
and he's trying to like start. Yeah, he's starting because he doesn't know that this guy is actually a legit veteran. Who's wily and cunning. And he
doesn't think being wily and cunning is part of their makeup.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like he's not used to that, and so he was about to stop the fight, and the leader says like, no, just let it continue. Mm-hmm.
At the end, he says he's just a man.
Yeah. And it's this really it's a great movie. I love that movie so much.
And all of those Vikings and the 13th being Antonio, they're all virtuous men. All got flaws, but they're virtuous men.
But they're virtuous men, and they were like, it really is. It's just got to be. It's like the most guy movie there is I've ever seen. I mean, it really is like a group of there's a Bill Band of brothers going to go take on the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
learn a lot of good history, and it's really entertaining, and it gets you fired up. It's great guy movie.
And it's like it's a good portrayal of the time period. I mean, the weapons and armor are a little bit. It's actually kind of interesting because they mix their weapons and armor like all over the place. but that's actually kind of fits what the Vikings were, because they were raiders and traders. They had
they're international,
a collection of stuff from a whole bunch of different places.
They're worldwide. Everybody thinks they were just like relegated to like Northern Europe and maybe like the British Isles, and it's like no, they were all the way down to like they would raid
places in order to, like, to supplement what they could produce themselves. They would raid, but they you raid and take a bunch of valuable stuff. Well, you can't eat it. So what you have to go do is you have to go take that and trade it to someone else. So you go raid one people, and then you go trade the stuff that you took to another people.
But they're like the Comanche and the Mongols, where it's like, well, these guys are businessmen. Yeah. They're not just out here raiding for nothing.
The long ships are like Viking long ships are primarily river ships, right? They're primarily like they go up, so they were river traders and river raiders more than they were open sea vessels. Now they had ships their ships could handle open seas. They were great shipbuilders, right? But it was
there's a great scene in the 13th Warrior where they show them sailing north, and how like miserable it is, and how used to it the Vikings are.
Yeah, and then, like, Antonio Banderas, like, it's stormy, and it's like, shouldn't we be closer to land because it's stormy and whatever? And it's like, no, boy, this is no day to be close to land, because they know that if you get close to land, you're going to get dashed up against the rocks. You actually want to be on the open seas when it's stormy. It's safer than being closer to land. It was
very much akin to a historic Predator, like the movie Predator, because it's like, the guy keeps he goes through his own hero's journey, and like in the helicopter where Jesse Ventura is offering him some tobacco, and like there's this whole like kind of bravado going along the whole trip, and he's kind of they show a lot of cool little characters with cool lines. It's like that, but actually like relatively historically accurate. So
another great scene in that is after we definitely got to watch this one on stream.
Oh, it's a mandatory. Dude, I haven't thought about
it. There's a great scene where after one of their battles, where a bunch of them had died, and the Antonio Banderas is like sitting there like just exhausted from battle. One of the Vikings comes up to him and like, listen, they're just mournful. They're listing out the people they lost, right? And he hands Antonio Banderas a flagon of a drinking horn full of mead, right? And Antonio Banderas, of course, he's a good Muslim, right? He says, "My lips can touch neither the fermentation of grape nor of wheat," and the Viking, just laughs at him and says, "It's honey. It's made from honey." So after a minute, he takes it. And it's like, well, we're all gonna die here anyway, and just gulps it down.
It's just like it's got everything. It's got everything that Predator has, and Predator's top 5 movie for me. So I might have to have 13th Warrior in my top 5 too. Can't recommend it enough.
I love that. And I own that one on YouTube too. So we can send it to you if you want. But
that's a
love
mandatory
that movie. It's
Mediana, thank you for the $5. Thank you so much. This has been interesting. Thank you. We enjoyed.
I think I was like 12, maybe even younger when I first saw that. And again, it was one that my dad knew that I would really like it, but he also knew that my mom does not like movies that are that violent.
I watched it on repeat enough to concern my mother. That is
and so he had to wait till, I don't even remember exactly how, but he had to wait till after my mom was like out of town or something. So he showed me that movie.
Well, thank you Bama. Thank you very much. We really appreciate the $5 super chat. That's what makes the show possible. Honest with you. Thank you. Bama Diana, you earned yourself a drum roll. Round of applause. Thank you so much. And thank you so much. Can't. And if you don't send in a super chat, boo. Okay, I think I've exhausted a whole soundboard. So let's see. Interesting. Yeah, good question here, Josh. Sorry. What did I think about the Prey? Did you see Prey on Netflix, Sam?
No, I did not.
So Prey is the prelude. The what do they call those?
I have never actually seen the original Predator.
Yeah, you would love it, man. It's Yeah, you would enjoy it on a number of reasons. It's a hero's journey.
I've seen some of the later remakes, but I've never seen the original.
Nah, the OG Predator is really good. If you just want a movie where you can just like have a good time, you know what I mean? It's just a guy's movie. There's like one female character and they call her a liar and then she's killed. It's like there's like I don't even know why she was in there. She's there, they rescue. She's like part of this militia force. They rescue her and then they're like, you're a liar. And then they go and you're thinking, well, she's gonna be part of the plot, right? Like this must be some plot, some subplot. And no, she's just killed by the Predator like 5 minutes later. So not to spoil the plot for you, but it's a very guys movie. You would enjoy it.
Is the plot really important in a movie like Predator? I mean,
no, it's mostly
it's I know what the premise is.
It's not so much. No. But my thought on the prelude, what is that called? What are the Star Wars? What's the Star Wars prequel? Yeah, the prequel. Thank you to the Predator movie. Man, I think it was cool how they showed the Comanche in their early iterations as a tribe of the Northern Rockies, right? But I think that came out in like 2018 ish, and it was very much in the. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but like the very pro-feminine. Every movie needed a heroine in it, and I just thought like they were kind of making up for the initial lack of feminine characters or lack of women in the initial Predator, and they really just crammed home this heroine. And it's like if it's a real life heroine, there's been many I'm not.
Yeah, if you want to make strong, like I don't have a problem with like good female characters, but it's so obvious when it's not good female characters that are put into a position where like she's just as good as all the guys.
Yeah, that's where it's like it loses the plot to me because it's like, well, then you're
there are a very small handful of like known female warriors who like throughout history, and there are a few, right? But it's like it's just frustrating when it's so obvious when it's forced.
Yeah, and like we have many female saints and we venerate the Theotokos. So it's like, well, we're very pro-woman. It's just a matter of like, but I absolutely think it was great that they showed what they did, Sam, was like you could think like pre-horse Mongols, right? Like they showed the earliest iterations of the Comanche tribe where they existed as this kind of like downtrodden, like the Mongols. They were like really poor. They didn't really have anything.
I don't think there are pre-horse Mongols because that's the whole
that's true. But pre-ascension Mongols they're essentially a Stone Age tribe, dude. Before the horses arrived, they're like living in the Rockies, just getting their butt kicked all the time. And then once they got the horse, really they ascended quickly. Bama Diana says Wonder Woman back in the late. True. What a looker Wonder Woman was. That is true. Who played Wonder Woman? I forget, but yeah, I got a thing for powerful brunettes. I'm not proud of it, but it's the truth.
It's like there's movies I really like with strong female characters. Like I mean, it's like my favorite author. What was that?
Joan of Arc got sold down the river, dude. I think
I know it's so weird. Hey, you want an actual like cool female, great heroine of history that they just cannot do a good movie of.
And like by history in general, the Catholics killed her. The Catholics executed her, and then we're like, our bad. She's a saint. Oh, sorry about that.
I mean, yeah. So that I think there's some of that has to do with but then shortly after this, England becomes Protestant.
Yeah.
But regardless.
And Boudica, obviously, and there's I think you know what one of my favorite characters and one of the most harrowing characters from Old West history is Cynthia Ann Parker, who was captured by the Comanche, went through a horrible story, but eventually kind of ascends to this. I don't want to say queen position, that's not right, but a position of some prominence for a woman. She was married to a very prominent chief, and she gave birth to the most prominent chief of the Comanches, in Quanah Parker, who is actually half white. It's a very strange story. Like his name is Quanah Parker because he's part of the Parker family, and there's still a Parker County. Parker County is where Dallas is, it's up by where Dallas is. So it's this her life is very closely intertwined with Texas history. You know where Congress is, right, Sam? Like Congress Avenue.
Yeah.
So she was taken when they brought her back. They recaptured her from the Comanches. They brought her right down to like Congress and Cesar Chavez today, and then like paraded her up and down Congress between there and the Capitol. So it's just like, and the only known photo, the photos that we have were taken in a photography studio down where like where would this be? Like 3 or 4 blocks south from the Capitol. So it all happened like right there. It all happened in Austin. It's just and then she died of a broken heart, basically. It's just such a harrowing story. It's amazing survival story. And her story is like I said, harrowing. There are numerous things that they got wrong in the village, like him shooting the eagle with the bow. Yeah, the Comanche wouldn't shoot an eagle. Let's see. Buffalo Calf Road woman. Yeah, there's lots. Yeah, Buffalo Calf Road woman. There's Victorio's sister. What's Victorio's sister's name, guys? She was like an incredibly powerful warrior in her own right. Let's see. Lozin. Thanks, Josh. Lozin. Yeah, Lozin is Victorio's sister's name. She was kind of like seen as like a magic person. There are numerous things. Got that. All right. So we're going to go another 5-10 minutes here. Is that good with you, Sam?
Sure. I'm fine.
Start wrapping it up here. I'm looking through the chats. If you guys have anything else you want to throw in, let me know. Lozin was a truly bad to the bone woman. Lozin was bad, dude. There's an instance in which Victorio is like, he's my next episode. He is really probably the greatest chief of the Apache. Like Geronimo, you probably heard of Geronimo, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody knows Geronimo, but he was kind of like selfish. He's off doing his own like revenge trip. Like Victorio was really trying to look out for the well-being of his people, and they start trying to flee south to Mexico so they're not put on these really terrible reservations, right? And they get to the Rio Grande and it's flooded. And you can imagine like the Rio Grande being flooded. It's imposing. It's scary. And Lozin just sees everybody like pauses and they're like, oh no, we're trapped. We can't get across the river. And Lozin's like famously doesn't even break stride with her horse. She doesn't even stop to talk to anybody. She just rides her horse into the river and across the other side and kind of shames all the guys into like, oh, I guess we got to do it now. You know, Lozin had supernatural powers. Yes, it was said she had vision. She was she's Victorio's sister, a younger sister by like 15 years, by like quite a bit, but he held her in great regard. She had strong medicine. Geronimo is said to have stated that she was the best shot. Yeah, there's a lot of, I didn't touch on her as much. I'm going to do a live stream on Lozin because she had such a great impact on the story. And I'm going to do more on Victorio, but I didn't get to put as much of her into the story as I want to. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Very interesting though. She's got there's so much witchcraft in the Apache culture too. There's like a lot of medicine.
I mean, and you know, those were things that they did, right?
It was very real.
They still do in some cases.
And there's aspects of it where it's like, well, there probably is something to that. Like even as Christians,
I think that there's too many. There's too many accounts of for lack of a better word, supernatural powers in history in mythology to kind of discount as being entirely nonsense.
Yeah,
I don't believe in a strictly materialist world, right? There is not. I think if you buy into a strictly materialist world, like not materialist in like the consumer sense, but like materialist in the metaphysical sense, that the only things that are real are physical things,
you touch,
and you know. I think that's such a limiting.
It makes history 2D if you don't have that aspect in it, but 3D history actually includes the metaphysical.
Yeah. Because it's just like you can't if you throw all of that out as their superstition or as just like superstition and con artistry, right? It's like you're you have to ignore so much to kind of make that case, and a lot of times that like the reason in terms of some of the later Protestants will say that Christians don't do witchcraft or whatever because that's all fake. And it's like, that's not what the early Christian interpretation was. The reason we are forbidden from seeking those things is because they're dangerous.
Because it's real.
Not because there's nothing there.
No.
It's because it's dangerous. That's not good for people.
Yeah.
It's not good for us to engage in those things. And the thing is, like, you don't, when you open yourself up to some of these things, you just don't know what is influencing you.
It doesn't necessarily mean that there will be negative.
Not all spiritual forces are benevolent. In fact, many are not.
Many are not.
Right? Not all. Like if you buy into the idea that there are non-human intelligences, right? If there are basically entities that have intelligence that are not human. So whatever you want to call it, angels, demons, something in between, pagan gods. The kind of overwhelming consensus historically is that many of them are not like benevolent towards humans. Some of them are, but not all of them are.
Right, and sometimes they
may grant you visions or powers and such, but it may also take from you, and it may not be that it's good for you to have those things.
If it was all maleficent, it would be easier because you would be like, oh, I'm just going to avoid that. But there are times when it's beneficial, and so you're like, well, I should dabble in that. And I want to clarify, like with Lozen, with the Apache in general, all their worship is not witchcraft. I don't mean that. I mean that they believe in witchcraft. But like, yes, to Josh's point here, like Lozen was not a witch. I was not saying that. Their general spiritual practice is not. That's not what I'm equating to witchcraft.
But there is kind of shamanic practices that have existed in many different civilizations, right? Like ways of accessing otherworldly powers. Right?
And the Apache lived in a world where you were very afraid. They did have witches in their tribe, and you were very afraid of that, meaning that, like, well, let's say like more like magicians maybe, but like they had the power of witches, and the Apache in their worldview were if you said, oh, that witch put a curse on your baby, but don't worry about it, they'd think you were insane. That was a very real threat to them, was to have hexes and witchcraft wrought upon you.
And that's the truth. That's true of most civilizations historically. So
the only way they could explain it was magic. Yeah, man, that's pretty much, that's what I'm saying. The great power, with great power comes great responsibility. Exactly.
I mean, yeah, but it's also sometimes the responsibility is in not seeking those things out, right? Where if you're seeking these things, if you're seeking out mysticism, like you could really damage yourself and damage your soul. And if you are granted mysticism through some other kind of spiritual pursuit, sometimes that's okay. But it's also the people who go looking for power, it almost invariably corrupts you. And it's like that's kind of the thing, right? That's why a lot of times superheroes, right, within comic books stumble onto their power by accident. Right? Very few of them went looking for those powers. Yeah. And in fact, many cases, the people who go looking for the powers, it's like they're are corrupt, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like they stumble onto this, and that's a very repeated trope in superheroes. Is like they are the least likely person to get power, and that's why they can maintain their virtue with the power. Because it's like yes, like power corrupts, right, and so but it's not just that power is a corrupting influence. It's also that people who seek power are almost invariably people who are prone to corruption or who are already corrupted themselves, right? So it's I don't know, I'm being
I mean, I think in particular the Christian tradition, it's like, well, the apostles were just like dudes fishing. And then they were like, hey, come over here and you're with us now. And it's like, oh, okay. But they weren't like seeking out power. Let's see here. Oh, interesting. This is a little different topic, but Theo, they were asking Space Cowboy, who lives, I'm not doxing you here, Space Cowboy. You've mentioned it before. He lives on the the eastern side of the Sierras, up kind of by Reno, and there was a famous. This is north of Reno, but you're asking about Captain Jack's hideout. Captain Jack was a Modoc leader who hid out in the lava fields and was one of the last holdouts against the U.S. Army. So if you have a chance to go visit Space Cowboy, it would be it's way up in northeastern California. I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what the hell's up there. Like, it's just lava fields. I lived in California for 30 years, almost all my life. Nobody has any idea what is going on in northeastern California. It might as well be a separate state. I have no idea what the hell is going on up there. You ever been up there, Sam?
To where?
Northeastern California?
Not really. No,
I have no idea what's up there.
Well, I mean, they want to be their own. They want to be their own state, right?
Yeah, free state of Jefferson.
Free state of Jefferson, right? Yeah.
Which they
have been. I am all for too. It's California that won't let them. They have voted several times to do so. And they won't. And they're not. They have not been allowed to.
Josh McAllister says, Wild West Extravaganza covered the Modoc Wars. Yes, that's a great episode. Go check it out. Isn't the thing they do with breaking bread and stuff a church ritual? I mean, that'd be communion for us, I suppose. Right?
I guess that's what you're talking about. I'm not really sure what you're getting at.
It would depend on the denomination, but I think yes. Yeah,
rituals are part of like there's something like what do you mean by I don't yeah, I'm not sure what your point is here though. I mean,
maybe that there's some similarity between Christianity and paganism because of the ritual.
I don't. Yeah. Well, okay, but rituals are a part of human society on almost every level. You cannot. You don't have human civilization without ritual. There is no human civilizations that exist without ritual of some kind. Like it is fundamentally linked to how we think about the world and how we perceive the world. Like we are human beings are essentially hardwired to think about things religiously. That's why there's never been a civilization without religion, and there never will be.
Let's see. Oh, and to that point, you don't want that. You don't want a spirit walking around you at night. No, I do not.
No.
Elite Super Growl, bro. I was a practicing Satanist and did blood magic. Sam is right. Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I hope you've gotten away from that now.
He is. Yeah, Elite Super Growl, I believe, is Catholic. I believe, but yes, he is. I know he's away from that.
Yeah, because it's and I've heard other people who have left those things, and yeah, it is. You get into some really dark stuff. Like once you open again, because if you open yourself up to some of these experiences, you don't necessarily know what it is unless you like and most people are not there's a couple of like really dangerous things. Even if you do take precautions, you're assuming that this is it's the kind of quintessential human arrogance to assume that, well, I can protect myself from these other things. Why in the world would you believe that? Like, you are not the most powerful entity right here. You are not the more powerful entity in these relationships. And so it's like, do not assume for a minute that in the battle of like human versus demon, that the demon isn't going to destroy you.
Or that they're not cunning enough to be nice to you.
You think that's like that, there are many accounts of Christian saints and ascetics who have had encounters with demons who appeared as angels. Because they were angels once. They can appear that way.
And like, how many of these accounts of native tribes, not even just North American, but native tribes throughout the world, where they say, oh, they'll name off some spiritual entity that contacted them, and it's like, well, yeah, you mean like a demon? You mean like, yeah, like it doesn't mean that like the particular entity that they're referring to is made up in their mind, is just entirely imaginary. They could have actually had these encounters.
They could have had encounters,
100%.
And I think people like back in pagan times, they had encounters with things.
Yes.
and it's like in um and then sometimes like later Christians will want to say like basically break up everything non-human thing into angels, like category demons, and not have any nuance between the two. And I don't think that's correct either, right? There's a lot of the stuff is stuff that just by its very nature is outside of human understanding, and we're not really equipped to understand the distinctions between these things either. That's again, this is why Christians are generally warned against engaging with this, because it's like you are not equipped to be able to understand and handle these things.
Yeah,
that's why Christian why people in pagan Europe and they used these used various methods to acquire power and gain visions and whatnot. And
they weren't just sacrificing people for nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
I saw this real quick. Josh McAllister says the Captain Jack's holdout is near the town of Eureka. Eureka is Eureka, not to be confused with the town of Wairika, which is just the same thing with the Y in front of it. But yes, I've never been to either. They're just way up in the middle of nowhere.
Is that actually how you spell? Is that how you spell Eureka in?
It's Eureka.
Okay. Well,
way up in Northern California.
Okay.
And it's they got that term because of the gold rush. Like people would say, "Oh, Eureka."
Yeah. Well, do you know where Eureka comes from?
I know there's a tribe by the name of Wairika, but I don't know if they're...
No, Eureka, like the term, like why you would say Eureka when you discover something.
Yeah, when I'm put on the spot.
It's from Archimedes.
Oh, okay.
It was famously what Archimedes said after discovering the theory of displacement.
What's the theory of displacement?
So he was tasked by the king of Syracuse to determine how much gold was in a gold crown. And the gold, because the crown was of an irregular shape, it was impossible prior. They didn't have a method for determining how much, like what the weight of it was, right, or like how much mass it had, right. And so and then Archimedes realized while taking a bath one day, when he got into the bath, the water was displaced as he got in the bath, and he realized that and he famously shouted Eureka, and he realized that that water displacement is a way that you can measure the mass of irregularly shaped objects, because how much water is displaced is what the mass is. So yeah. And that was a thing that was people didn't know about for a long time, right? And
I've looked at Archimedes screw before and just thought like, dude, you could give me 1,000 years, I'd never think that up.
Archimedes was a Greek mathematician, an inventor, and an engineer and he was in Syracuse. Syracuse is where he lived. So Syracuse was which of course is in Sicily, but was a Greek city state.
Let's see. Josh says, oh wait, I missed the first part of this, but Josh says that the tribes used to bury their medicine bundles with them. Yeah, that's very true. And if there was a part of the medicine bundle, meaning this like spiritual package, it could have arrows in it. It could have pieces of bone. It could have all kinds of stuff depending on the tribe. But if some part of that got lost, like the Cheyenne, there's an instance where the Cheyenne got some of their medicine arrows stolen, and it was like a whole thing. They had to like take the last remaining arrow, commission new arrows, take those to a sacred spot. It was just a disaster. So it was a very important thing that the medicine bundles wasn't. It was seen as like, we can't go to war right now because our medicine is off. So it was a big problem. Elite Super Grant says, I sleep with a rosary next to me. Awesome.
Good idea. Yeah.
Way away from the other side. Good work, man.
In case you don't know, we Orthodox have a similar thing to rosary called prayer ropes, which are essentially the same thing as rosaries and used the same way. We don't have all the same types of prayers we use with them, but it's that tradition exists in both within has existed within Christianity for a very long time.
It's there for a reason. It keeps the bad stuff away.
Well, you see rosaries even in non-Christian religions too. It's a very old religious practice, right? The kind of the idea of like a tool for kind of a meditative style prayer, right? It's like, it's useful. People often realized a long time ago that it's a very useful thing to have something tactile to help you kind of tune out, the other things as you're trying to pray.
And to kind of like keep track of it, like how many times.
Keep track of it, and also like the tactile kind of, human. It helps orient yourself.
Connects the world.
Well, because Buddhists have rosaries too, right? And use them the same kind of way, right? It's like
my family's ranch in California. Our neighbors are a Buddhist monastery. So it's a whole scene out there. They have they built a great big, like bright orange.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
It's a fascinating. They're very nice, but like when I was growing up, it was just like, I don't know, man. We used to call them the Okies because it was just like this family that lived there. In California, it's a very derisive term. You're not supposed to say that. That's a very, you really like, that was like it was like a bad word. I just didn't know it, but like the old school Central Californians that came from like the Grapes of Wrath time, it was like, you did not call someone an Okie. But I thought that's what we called them the Okies. So I thought their last name was the Okies, and they were hillbilly trash, man. If you're watching, sorry about that, Okies, but it was bad. And then the next day, it was a full on Buddhist monastery with this bright orange wall around it. It seemed like it happened overnight, and it's in the middle of rural California. So you see like all these Buddhists with their full robes. There's monks there. There's like a full, like 12 monks that live there full time. So it's a scene.
Yeah, Buddhism's so fascinating. It's an interesting religion, and it's I don't know as much about Buddhism as I want to, but partially because it's not necessarily. I mean, there's different factions within Buddhism, right? Yeah. There's different sects of Buddhism, and they're not all the same. They have some things that are the same, but then some things that are very different. And then I don't know.
We've got. Demons are what's up? Theo says demons are absolutely terrifying. People who play with Ouija boards are dumb. Absolutely.
Yeah. Would never touch one of those.
It's actually it's spelled.
It's what?
It's spelled OIJI. So it's like we and ya. Like it's two words combined that both mean yes. And I understand it's a board game made by Hasbro. I get it, but there's a whole agenda behind that.
It is, and it's also like the problem. Again, the issue isn't the issue is that when you kind of put yourself in a state of where you're trying to be open to outside influence, like you just don't know what it is that's going to. To take advantage of that,
Oh, this is interesting. I feel there are a few similarities in Catholic Church and Native peyote meetings. It's interesting that Quanah Parker, the guy we were just talking about, converted to, I believe, the Native American church, but he converted to Christianity in the late 1800s. But you saw this with many Comanche and Kiowa. They would not give up their peyote ceremonies. Like they would be full on Christian, but the one sticking point they would not give up is their psychedelic ceremonies. So like,
well, we're starting to see, now that we've actually, wasn't expecting to get on this conversation right now, but there's a lot of, I think it's really good that we're finally back to being able to ethically experiment with psychedelics again because they have a lot of utility, a lot of usefulness for treating various psychological problems that have, and I'll be honest. I went through a series of ketamine treatments at one point, and it's technically how Brandon and I met. Was not sorry to out you too, Brandon, but was that's why my dad introduced us, right? Is because is like you were interested in that at one point, and like he said, talk to my son about it, right? And like I was really badly depressed for like 20 years, and ketamine was the only thing that really actually helped me with that, and I'm glad that we're the research that's been done about these things now is really promising, because it's a treatment option that fundamentally works very differently than other kinds of medications. But it's also
I think
like
people would be surprised to hear that you don't view that, or I don't as well, but like we don't view that as like something verboten or irreconcilable with the
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think that with all of those things, you have to be very careful about how you use it. I cringe every time I hear people try to who are like doing this on their own with it, like without or like with like getting magic mushrooms on their own, like and like doing a trip, like don't.
Our official stance here on our YouTube show is we do not condone that.
No, I would not touch any of that stuff without supervision of a doctor, because it can be really dangerous. And if you are not careful, you can open yourself up to things that are not good. And
the Ouija board and everything, but
I say with those things, like I wouldn't touch those things because it's like but as far as like they have a lot of potential to, and I think that we'll get to a point within society where it's going to be a much more normal,
yeah, for sure,
a normal thing within society.
Governor of Texas is advocating for it, so
yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, because this is the research that's come out of the and for people who don't familiar with so psychedelics started to be first experimented with in like the 60s and 70s as not initially as like things like for spiritual kind of awakening. That was what it became, but it was more like this is potentially like people like could be treatment for people with PTSD, for other psychological issues. Addiction is one of the because there's almost nothing that actually deals with addiction unless you have basically like the thing that gets people over severe addictions is essentially having a religious experience, and those are very hard to with the use of psychedelics you can help that. But like that's what like the research started being, but because they got so badly abused in the 60s and 70s, the U.S. government, and not just the U.S. government, the governments basically worldwide.
The CIA owns the patent to LSD.
Yeah, but they shut it. But they shut down. It was not until the last 10 years really that the FDA and such has allowed more clinical trials of some of these stuff. And
to the opposite side of your point too, really the research period behind that was the proliferation of the MK Ultra experiments, where the United States owned the vast majority of the psychedelic supply. I think a lot of the psychedelic hippie
they were scared. They were scared of what.
Yeah, they wanted to see like what it would do, and they were up against this kind of Cold War race with the Soviets to find out what it could do before the Soviets could utilize it. But there's lots and lots of terrible things that came out of MK Ultra, but once they realized that it could be used as a healing modality, there were some good things to those revelations as well.
I am at least glad that now that the research in that has been opened up again, that the prompt that has been really promising results. And again, I as I said, I've done it, and it was something that was the only thing that I had done that gave me kind of lasting relief from depression. Right?
Well, when the former hard right governor of Texas, Rick Perry, goes on to the biggest podcast in the world, in the Joe Rogan Show, and advocates for it for 3 hours, that's awesome. It really signals a shift in the tides. Real quick, Josh McAllister says, and thank you, Josh, because this is a good point. I messed this up. Quanah was a founder of the Native American Church and not a convert. That is absolutely right. I misspoke there. You talk for 3 hours, you're going to say something wrong. They had trials today over the CIA and MK Ultra. That is true. I saw that. Let's see. I'm sure the CIA will come completely clean and let us know everything that happened.
Stop.
Let's see.
Let's end on a good note.
Dude, no, we're being a little funny, but I think that's really, we've caught up on everything.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'm going to shamelessly, this is my let's see. Also, I got to do this. We're going to pick, I'm going to say who has the the most suspicious activity tonight. I'm going to say, I'm seeing a lot of activity in here for Josh McAllister. And Josh, I'm thinking maybe it's a little suspicious tonight how active you are in the chat. So we have a full-on Fed alert. We have a Fed alert. Josh McAllister, Fed alert. Oh no, Fed alert. Could this be a Fed?
We were talking about this beforehand. He really wanted to find a reason to play the siren.
Excited. Yeah, that was the whole point. That was the whole point. So yeah, that's an honor on this chat.
For tonight, Josh, you get to be the Fed, right?
So I had to stick that in there. But thank you all so much. I really appreciate everybody coming out. Sam, appreciate all that you're giving to the program. You're a fan favorite, so an indispensable part of the program. So thank you.
Happy to be here.
Time. And thank you, everybody, like I said, for coming out. Thank you to Bama Deanna for the super chat. Thank you all for all your time and all your great chats and everything. We'll try and come back. I think we're busy tomorrow. Sam has a party you're throwing.
I know that you're going to be at.
I will be at. You're going to throw it here.
I need to go to bed before 2 months.
You got about 10 hours, then we'll start the party. And let's see. So hopefully Sunday night we can come back. It's a busy weekend for everybody. So everybody stay safe out there on the 4th. Everybody have a good time celebrating our country's birthday. It's the 250th, so that'll be fun. And we'll be back next. We'll be back next live streams. We're going to talk Alaska. Will be in there. We're going to do some more tier rankings. I will be talking more Victorio and Joaquin Murrieta. And what was the other thing? Oh, we'll be talking a little bit of young Washington as well. I want to discuss that with the movie coming out. So we'll be doing some young Washington talk, some of his early frontier exploits. He's a hardcore guy. Washington was like, he was a scrapper. He was down to go.
Maybe you and I can go see that movie together at some point.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
If you want to see it, I kind of want to see it too, but I don't want to go. That's one of my. I'm going to go to alone. So
no, yeah, we can. I won't have time this weekend, but we can do it. We'll make time for it.
See if we can figure out time.
That all said, thank you all. Have a happy 4th. Oh, my new grandson, by the way. Well, prayers up for Bama Deanna. I'm sure we will have we'll be welcoming a new member to the Bama Deanna family. That's always, I just had a new niece. So it's a joyful time. So all that said, hopefully you'll have a 4th of July, baby, Bama Deanna. Thank you all again. Have a happy and safe 4th of July, and we will see you all soon. Talk to you soon. Have a good night. God bless. I clicked the wrong button. Bye, guys.